a fair amount. So just be ready for it. Milepost 8 doesn't say exactly which direction. Kind of hard to tell from the trip check cams, but just know that
mystery water.
What's that?
It's mystery water.
No, it's definitely there for sure.
Well, sort of a mystery.
Got I-5 have any?
No, I-5 was fine this morning, other than occasionally angry fists of rain. Other than that, nothing really. Typical Oregon day.
Any leaves in Philomath down?
Plenty of leaves.
Yeah?
Yeah. Plenty. Lots.
Any
Everywhere.
Any debris, big limbs?
No. So Saturday, I came down here to the station. Brady tagged along because I thought I may need a producer. And he was down with that. So we came down here and it was, talked to my wife a couple of times and she was just like, no, we've had a couple of power bumps, but they lasted for maybe all of about a minute. Other than that, nothing really all that substantial.
I actually saw blue sky on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Little windows of blue sky. It was crazy.
We totally lucked out. I was looking at the satellite pictures, and what we got was the tail end of kind of the final band of that kind of cyclonic front that was moving up the coast, and we just sort of got hit by the last trailing band,
the fringe
that went through. We lucked out. Actually, Seattle lucked out too.
They did. I heard people in Washington over the weekend talking about the storm that wasn't
good. I'm all for that.
Well, yeah, absolutely,
good deal. Portland was a little worse off than we were, but here, I mean, we had out by Autzen there was a downed tree that took the power down. I guess out Elmira, Veneta, they had some downed trees that took some power lines out. Lane Electric was working on that. 126, as we mentioned in the news, over by Cushman, they had high water there. I mean, we really did luck out. There were a couple of debris flows, mostly on 38, that they were trying to deal with in high water on 101 down by Coos Bay and Reedsport. But beyond that, it was it was mild, all things considered, and comparing it to what we were expecting. I remember kind of a freak storm that went through, I don't know, Brady must have been 8 or so I'm going to say 10, 11 years ago, that was way worse than this.
Worse than the storm of the century?
Oh, way worse.
If anything, if it got people like myself to upgrade in the flashlight department and water and just kind of start to be prepared, because you just never know. You never know when even just power outages without notice can happen. But hopefully everything went fairly smooth for you. But you talk about that Cushman. It seems like that could be a serious spot there, because that's kind of that's a pretty thoroughfare that connects Florence to Eugene, and if that, I don't know, it seems like it typically is a flooded area that they need to do something.
I think we talked about that one time, and the county said that the cost of doing it was just so prohibitively high that it was not something that they could even do, if I recall correctly. Because I think this came up like 2 or 3 years ago. And I remember getting an email from one of the county commissioners, I think, well, probably Jay Bozovich, because that's his
I thought it was Sorensen for some reason, which...
No, because that's not his area.
Well...
So, but it was just, I mean, it was an insane amount of money to do something about it.
541-45 KPNW, if you should see anything about it. The commute, anywhere around that you think needs just a little bit of notice. Hopefully standing water is just about all that you encounter. Debris, things of that nature. Hey, we're not out of the woods with the rock slides, mudslides, debris. I mean, you mention it. If there's a kind of a region upon your commute that it could happen, maybe just be on the ready at 6:34. Coming up, we got the professor, Alan Sachs, also going to have the honor flight crew. The gentleman that just before they left, who came in to kind of talk about their life and experience and what they were looking forward to with the honor flight. That was last weekend, so they'll be in today to chat about that. Honor Flight, of course, the organization that takes World War II and Korean vets, flies them at no expense back to their memorial, and it's kind of it's like a 2 or 3 day. I mean, it's an adventure. They pile a lot in. And if you would like to help out future flights, or even be on a flight and help some folks out, be a part of the experience, we'll give you the opportunity. And Mr. Punjakar actually gracing us with his return. Also, we'll talk about Measure 97. We'll have somebody on to chat in the pro. Some people probably still trying to figure out boy, you hear a lot of information out there, and apparently the person that we're having coming up later in the show has been kind of instrumental in the development of 97. So we'll be able to kind of find out what they're thinking at this point.
Speaking of Measure 97, there was going to be a Tri-County Chamber of Commerce event that was going to be in Junction City, where they were going to have both pro and con. The Yes on 97 committee decided last week to pull out of that debate. And they say that the chamber, along with State Representative Val Hoyle, have been working to find a replacement for the Yes committee, but they say so far their efforts have been unsuccessful.
I actually sent them something to let them know that who we have on today, and to suggest that for a replacement. That's
what?
I don't know. I was surprised when I saw that email come across. That they
bailed out.
Well, that they're having a hard time finding somebody, really? With as much money as that they're spending, and don't you find that a little odd?
Well, yeah, no. I mean, the reason that I don't find it odd is because that all the polling data has shown that the more people learn about it, the less that they like it. So,
but that doesn't make you give up your. I mean, if you are passionate and trying to fight the fight,
again, they don't want to be put in a position where they have to defend something that potentially they don't think is terribly defendable. I mean, it's got a lot of problems with it. Let's just be. I mean, regardless of whether you buy the notion that it's not going to be passed along to consumers, and you can argue as the day is long whether that's going to happen. The fact of the matter is that they cannot guarantee, even though it says it in Section 3 of the measure, they can't guarantee that's going to go to what it says it's going to go to. There is no guarantee. The legal counsel for the legislature said as much. He came out and said, no, it doesn't have to be used for that. And the legislature can at any time, which, if you listen to the news this morning, you already heard, they can change that law anytime they want to. And that includes where the money goes. There are no guarantees on this at all.
Have you had one of those conversations, or multiple, where you're talking about 97 and you throw out some of the pitfalls and, hey, if this happens, and they flat out say, oh, that's a lie. That's not even going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's good for them because it just shuts you down. Because, how do you argue? I mean, to say that it's not going to be an increase everywhere you look. I mean, they're talking about $600, the average. that's the average, meaning that some are going to have quite a bit more.
Yeah. Well, you're going to, I mean, we'll talk to Mary King about that this morning, obviously. But, if you look, for instance, at Section 3 here, where it says all the revenue generated from the increase in the tax created through these act shall be used to provide additional funding for public early education in kindergarten through 12th grade, health care, and services for seniors. Revenue distributed pursuant to this section shall be in addition to other funds distributed for public early childhood and kindergarten through 12th grade education, health care, and services for senior citizens. Now, as you look at that, you say revenue distributed pursuant shall be in addition to other funds. It doesn't say how much the other funds have to be. For instance, it doesn't say as a percentage of the budget. It doesn't say that it is in addition to current dollar amounts of $1.4 billion for education. It doesn't give any determination as to what those extra funds or those current funds actually are, in addition to other funds. So if we're funding education at $1.4 billion a year right now, can they cut that to $200,000 and say, well, this is additional funds on top of this other funding? How many times have we seen governmental agencies, when they get a big tax increase for a particular thing, go, okay, well, that will all go towards this, and the money that we would normally take out of the general fund to put into X, we're going to just shift that somewhere else. There's nothing to guarantee that. I mean, and why, for instance, is it a statute that they're trying to get passed, a change in the statute, in the tax law, as opposed to go through, for instance, something constitutional, where the legislature can't change it?
Well, that's just crazy talk. Yeah. Unfortunately, the people that some of the people that have that whole, it's for the kids, it's for education, it's the old for the kids clause that kind of gets people wrapped up. We'll talk more about that. If you have anything that you would like included in the conversation with Ms. King, you can always email it at 1120kpnw@gmail.com. Sax, the joy of, coming up next on 1120 KPNW.
Batteries Plus Bulbs is your one-stop shop for all your home and business lighting needs. Visit Batteries Plus Bulbs in Eugene and now open in Corvallis on 9th Street next to the grocery outlet, or batteriesplus.com to see our full selection of energy-efficient lighting, including LEDs.
Bill and Tim's is barbecue and a whole lot more.
Bill, barbecue is the very air we breathe.
I know, Tim, but it isn't for everyone all the time. That's why Bill and Tim's expanded menu is a big hit.
True, we don't look like a men's club in here anymore.
Golden mac and cheese balls, Mexican specialty dishes, gourmet salads. What new dish will you be trying today, Tim?
I'm ready to branch out.
Great.
Give me the barbecue bacon cheeseburger.
Tim. Bill and Tim's Barbecue.
Open at 11 daily.
13th and Pearl in Eugene.
Check out this new app I just got. It's called Ask Washington.
Ask Washington? Like Washington, D.C.?
Yeah. You tap here and then ask. Like this. Hey, Washington, how can I afford a college education that'll help me get a good job?
I think you said you'd like to abolish the Department of Education. Is that right?
What? No, that's crazy.
Here, let me try. Hey, Washington, can we do something about the price of prescription drugs?
I think you said you'd like restrictions on women's health care. Is that right?
Are you kidding me?
Sometimes, it seems like politicians in Washington just can't get it right. But Ron Wyden's different. He holds town meetings in every county, every year, so nothing gets lost in translation. That's why he's working to stop tuition hikes, get better job training, and hold drug companies accountable. Ron Wyden listens, and he'll never stop working for you.
I'm Ron Wyden, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Wyden for Senate.
Live from the Whitmer Brothers Studios, it's the Wake Up Call with Rob Holloway and me, Bill London, every Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9. Click on the Wake Up Call logo at KPNW.com and hear and see the latest news as well as interviews with local, regional, and national newsmakers. It's the Wake Up Call. It goes down easy, like a Whitmer ale.
Each franchise independently owned and operated. Offer good on selected product at participating franchises only. Some restrictions may apply. Ask for details.
Stay tuned for a special offer from Budget Blinds.
Honey, I just tried to turn on the TV with the remote and our new shades went up. What's going on?
Oh, I got the new shades from Budget Blinds. They're motorized. Now we don't have to keep getting up and down to adjust them. We can do it with the push of a button. Pretty convenient, huh?
Wow, you're a genius.
The Budget Blinds motorization event is here with huge savings on the most stylish, kid-friendly motorized window coverings available anywhere. And right now, you can get a rebate up to $500 when you purchase motorized Signature Series window coverings powered by Somfy. Plus, Budget Blinds does all the measuring and installation and gives you a free in-home design consultation. Call now to get an up to $500 rebate on motorized window coverings from Budget Blinds. This event ends soon. Call your locally owned Budget Blinds at 1-800-611-9262. That's 1-800-611-9262. 1-800-611-9262.
Your community.
The mom of two young kids.
Your show.
People are. I think right now the most important issue.
Your station.
People are not going to do their own research and figure it out.
Wayne County's Wake Up Call on News Radio 1120 KPNW.
News Radio 1120 KPNW. You know, every time we have Professor Sachs on, we learn something new about him. University of Texas at Arlington, he's a political science professor. He is the official, unofficial, by legislative decree, political scientist of the state of Texas. Alan Sachs joining us. So you have a waterfall named after you, is this true?
Yes, somebody could Google it in if they want to. Just call it, it's called Tarrant County College Trinity River Campus. It's on the banks of the Trinity River in downtown Fort Worth, and just a couple of weeks ago, they have a huge waterfall that it is just very impressive, and they named it after me. I love the waterfall. I want to call it the Big Drip, but they didn't think that was appropriate. That's really true, because I am a big drip.
Okay, well, I've seen pictures of you. You're not.
You can Google it in. It's really nice.
Well, we'll get on that.
It's great.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about more WikiLeaks leaks. I mean, the stuff is coming out so fast, and there is almost zero coverage. I would go so far as to say it's almost like a news blackout on the stuff.
You are right. It's really interesting. And by the way, this morning we find out that the link of WikiLeaks to the internet has now been severed, mysteriously severed. Who knows where that came from? But there's enough WikiLeaks in the past that it should be studied. But you're right. It's either the media or the Clinton administration or just coincidence that a whole group of women come up and say, Donald Trump touched me, or he said this to me, or that to me. And that has shoved WikiLeaks off the pages, if it ever was there in the first place. And now we're worried about what Donald Trump said to a woman 10 or 20 years ago.
Well, what are some of the things that have come out as far as WikiLeaks?
Well, we find out that Mrs. Clinton's been saying one thing to one group, another thing to another group, and that was planned, essentially. In other words, she says one thing to a private investment group, one thing in public, and it's pretty well planned. And she rationalizes that away. She says that's the way you do it. You talk one way, and then you talk another way. WikiLeaks has taught us that very much. We also find out that she's been told how to respond to any accusations about former President Clinton's sexual problems with women of many years ago. And the answer that we find out, given to her by political confidants, is just tell them it happened long ago and everything's been resolved and now move on. And that's exactly what she's done. I was just looking at a public opinion poll, and a great majority of the people think that the issue of President Clinton's escapades with women are not worth talking about anymore. But Donald Trump is another story. And Donald Trump has never been accused of assaulting a woman necessarily, only touching them if those allegations are true, touching them and making comments if those allegations are true. But all that has shoved WikiLeaks off the table. She's also made disparaging remarks, or the Clinton campaign has, about Catholics, about Hispanics, and other individuals and other groups, but that has no resonance either. It's a remarkable thing. We used to say that Ronald Reagan was a Teflon president. Nothing compared to the Clintons.
Well, yeah, but Reagan may have been a Teflon president, but keep in mind that he also was able to do that without having the press completely on his side and doing basically news blackouts of stories.
In fact, the press was against him for a lot of his administration. I remember Sam Donaldson, I think he was with ABC, and Sam Donaldson just drove President Clinton nuts all the time by yelling at him. Even when President Clinton was out of earshot, he continued to yell at,
you mean Reagan?
At President Reagan. You're absolutely right. That's a very good distinction, is that today the media seems to be solidly on the side of the Clintons and the Democrats. That certainly was not the case when President Reagan was around.
What is right now I mean, I don't know if you've seen any polling data regarding mainstream media and how much they're trusted at this point. Have you seen any?
I think that the public is mistrustful of them, but that's where it is anyway, and the polls do drive, I think, the election and voting to a great extent. Democrats, I understand, have been sampled much more than Republicans, as much as 6 to 8% in some of these polls. And the answer given, of course, is that there's more Democrats than Republicans, so they account for that in the sample. But some people say that's unfair, and it shouldn't be done that way. But most of the polls do show that Mrs. Clinton is pretty much ahead in many of the battleground states, and probably would win an enormous amount of the electoral vote if it was held today. A lot of people are saying that the polls are not accounting for a lot of people that just may not answer correctly, don't want to answer it, and anecdotally, we see many more Trump signs in various states like Florida than we do Clinton signs. But I don't think that really means all that much as terms of voting is concerned.
All right. Professor Sachs, gosh, I can't speak this morning. Professor Sachs, thanks for joining us on the Wake Up Call. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's always appreciated.
All right, you take care. It is 6:51 News Radio, 1120 KPNW.
Quarterback pumps. Now throws complete. Receivers inside the 20. Headed for the end zone. That's a touchdown, Oregon.
Precision counts, whether it's a big game on the line or, more importantly, your quality of life.
I used to refer to the excruciating pain in my cheek and jaw as crunch time. Turns out it's called trigeminal neuralgia, a condition caused by a nerve in my brain. I lived in fear of the next episode until my doctor recommended Sacred Heart Gamma Knife Center.
With the precision of a Heisman quarterback, the center's specialized physicians targeted the nerve with highly focused radiation beams. No knives or incisions were needed, which preserved healthy tissue. Mary returned home the same day, and it was game over for her pain in just a few weeks.
It's a whole new ballgame for me, with cheers instead of fears.
If you have a brain tumor or episodes of severe facial pain, ask your primary doctor or specialist if the Gamma Knife could be right for you. Visit our website at peacehealth.org/Gamma Knife to learn more.
Every election year, you hear lots of promises and few guarantees. Lars Larson here to tell you about one guarantee you have right here in Eugene and Lane County. Jeremy Parmenter will sell your home. That's right, Jeremy guarantees to sell your home at a price and a deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it. And Jeremy will sell your home fast. Darbin and Ruby wanted to sell their home and move out of the country. They didn't need the extra stress that comes with selling their home, so they called Jeremy Parmenter. He sold their home in less than 30 days, right on schedule, and got them $10,000 more than any house in that neighborhood. Why would you think of working with any other agent in Eugene or Lane County? And there's no risk. If you want out of the contract, you're out. Call the only agent I recommend in Eugene. Call Jeremy Parmenter at 541-255-5685. That's 541-255-5685. Online, OregonRealEstateAdvisors.com. That's OregonRealEstateAdvisors.com.
I'm Gary Conley with today's Money Minute. PERS, the Oregon Public Employees Retirement Plan, is back in the news again, as the assessments go out to public employers around the state who are required to make up any estimated shortfall in the program's funding. This deficit, called the unfunded liability, is now calculated at $22 billion, or about $5,400 for each person living in the state. Got 4 people at your dinner table? Then your share is a little over $21,000. The problem got to this point because the system has been using unrealistic assumptions to make promises to public employees, including investment returns of 7.5%, which is far more than the managers have been able to earn. I'd guess that the assumptions about how long retirees collecting these lifetime benefits are going to live are also unrealistic, so the problem is likely even worse than it appears. Here's the nugget. 80% of what PERS spends goes to pay benefits that have already been earned and that, according to a 2015 court decision, can't be changed. The latest proposal is to borrow $22 billion by selling bonds so that the system has more money to invest. That won't work under current conditions. So if Measure 97 does pass, expect the money to quickly find its way to PERS and disappear into this very ugly black hole. I'm Gary Conley, and that's today's Money Minute.
KPNW weather, brought to you by Ramjack West. Do you have foundation problems? Ramjack can fix that. Get your free quote at ramjackwest.com.
Good morning to you and yours. Today's shaping up to be more of the same as we've got another pocket of low pressure moving through the region. That means mostly cloudy skies, light haze out there. Temps right now in the upper 40s to a couple of low 50s. And it is fairly windy. Winds are out of the south at 10 to 20. And we're seeing a few gusts up to 25. I'm also tracking a few isolated showers off and on. Now another pocket of low pressure will move through this afternoon. And that means more of the same. Mostly cloudy skies. Temps will rise into the upper 50s. A couple of low 60s, 57 here in town. Winds will switch to the southwest at 5 to 15 with a few gusts up to 20 and a 60% chance of more showers off and on over the next few hours into this afternoon. Now, there's good news, though. Most of this rain will start to wrap up as we move into Wednesday afternoon, buying us at least a few days of partly cloudy skies and fairly dry weather before another major system heads this way. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Nation in the NBC 16 Weather Center, hoping you have a fantastic day.
The Bloomberg Market Report, sponsored by Pacific Continental Bank, serving your business and community in Eugene for over 40 years.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are little changed to lower as investors assess the latest economic data and earnings. The Dow is down 22 or 0.1% at 18,117. The S&P 500 is down 2 points at 2130, and the Nasdaq is lower by 7 at 5207. Shares of the toy maker Hasbro are up 5.3% after quarterly results beat estimates thanks to toys aimed at girls. And Bank of America is up almost 1% after profit beat estimates in the latest quarter. Output at U.S. manufacturers rose for the third time in 4 months on production of consumer goods and construction materials, a sign the industry is recovering from a prolonged spell of weakness. Taking a look at NYMEX crude this morning, it is picking up the pace of its losses, now down just over 1%, back under $50 a barrel at $49.75. And one more check of the S&P 500, now lower by 3 points. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Holloway in London and the Wake Up Call. News Radio 1120, KPNW.
Okay, on August 30th, Hillary Clinton was required to answer more questions, this time under oath. A federal judge ordered her to answer written questions about the homebrew server she set up in her Chappaqua state to avoid scrutiny. She was asked 25 questions by Judicial Watch. She and her legal team objected to 18 of them. She also filed objections about the whole process that required her to answer questions in the first place. She's above that, don't you know? Well, of the questions that she did answer, at least 21 times she said, "I don't recall," or some variation of it. She didn't recall consulting with anybody before using a private system. She didn't recall sending memos under her name. She didn't recall being advised that using a private email account was directly in conflict with federal rules. It was, according to Hillary, for purposes of convenience. For the Clintons, obeying the law is always too inconvenient, it seems. And there was the biggie. Hillary didn't recall giving the order to have emails in her private server destroyed. She just didn't recall that. We're supposed to believe that somebody else with more authority than Hillary ordered those emails destroyed on her server at her house. Even if we give her the benefit of the doubt, we still have an unresolved question. What is the reason for her failing memory. What's the root cause? Was it the concussion she suffered dodging sniper fire? Is she suffering from dementia? I mean, look, folks, the public has a right to know, do we not?
Investments in securities involves the risk of loss. The following is a far too common tale of investing in annuities. A successful couple invested a large portion of their savings in annuities, thinking they were a safe way to guarantee a dependable income stream no matter what the market did. But it didn't take long for them to regret their decision. They were locked into low returns, faced potential tax consequences, and that they couldn't get out of their annuities without paying huge penalties. They were stuck, and so was their money. Suddenly, their retirement hopes and dreams were in danger. But it didn't have to happen to them, and it doesn't have to happen to you. You can avoid the annuity trap. Here's one way. Get the free report, Annuity Insights, your guide to better understanding annuities, by calling 1-800-375-9991. Written by Forbes columnist and money manager Ken Fisher's firm. This powerful report could help save you from major financial heartache, and it's offered today for free. If you have an annuity or are considering one, claim your free annuities guide today. Hurry, free copy.
News Radio 1120 KPNW, Eugene, Springfield, USA.
Fox News Radio. I'm Dave Anthony. The battle is on for Mosul, Iraq's second largest city. As ISIS isn't just taking it lying down, Iraqi and Kurdish forces, backed by the U.S., have started the operation 2 years after Islamic State fighters overran the city. Fox's Jessica Gallagher live in our Middle East Bureau.
Dave, ISIS claiming responsibility for launching a series of suicide attacks targeting Kurdish forces attempting to retake Iraq's second largest city of Mosul from the insurgents. The Amaq news agency says 8 suicide attacks against the Peshmerga destroyed 2 Humvees belonging to the Kurds and Shiite militias. This as Army Lieutenant General Talib Shangati tells the AP the wide-scale military operation to oust ISIS is going very well and troops are moving according to plan. Shangati also praising the role of the U.S.-led coalition as very important in regards to carrying out airstrikes and intelligence sharing. ISIS captured Mosul in 2014. Dave.
Jessica, in Syria's civil war, activists say airstrikes hit a rebel-held village near Aleppo, killing at least 23 people, kids among them. Donald Trump will rally in Wisconsin later today. He just tweeted that there is large-scale voter fraud happening.
He is also encouraging at events his supporters to go out on Election Day to these polling places, hang around, and make sure that there's no funny business going on. While members of his campaign from the top to the bottom are pushing this idea of the media being in collusion with the Clinton campaign.
Fox's John Roberts outside Trump Tower. Hillary Clinton's running mate Tim Kaine will campaign for her in Maryland and Virginia while she preps for Wednesday's debate on Fox News Channel. The police chief in Hillsborough, North Carolina, says they still don't know who firebombed the Republican Party headquarters over the weekend. Outside, someone spray-painted Nazi "Republicans leave town or else."
We will not be intimidated, we will not be cowed, and we will not be scared.
State GOP Director Dallas Woodhouse calls it political terrorism. And days after a backpack with a bomb in it was left outside a police station in Nederland, Colorado, a man's been arrested. Fox News Radio, Very Balanced.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "Because I said so," or "Don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Ugh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
Well, starting the week on Wall Street, we're seeing some selling. Fox Business Network's Nicole Petalides live at the New York Stock Exchange.
Right now, we're watching stocks to the downside. We're seeing the Dow down 37 points at 18,098, and the Nasdaq Composite down 14, and the S&P 500 dropping 4. That means all 3 of the major indices dropping roughly 0.25% as energy and healthcare come under pressure. A few winners. Hasbro is up about 7%, doing very well with its Disney dolls and Profit Beat there. And we've seen Bank of America holding on to some green here after better than expected profit there. 89 companies in the S&P 500 this week reporting earnings, so plenty to watch. Back to you.
Thank you, Nicole. The price of oil is down 75 cents, back below $50 a barrel. As gas tips a little, AAA's national average for regulars down to $2.24 a gallon. That's nearly 2 cents less than a week ago. Rolling Stone magazine is in court. At issue, a November 2014 issue and a now discredited story titled A Rape on Campus.
Jury selection begins today in a defamation case brought against Rolling Stone magazine by a University of Virginia administrator who claims a story about a supposed gang rape of a co-ed inside a frat house cast her, the administrator, as the villain. The facts of the article have since been doubted and the magazine retracted it. Nicole Aramo was named in the story as providing counsel to the supposed victim, nicknamed Jackie by the writer. This Jackie may actually be called to testify in this case. Aramo's lawyers claim the magazine knowingly published falsehoods about her. Eben Brown, Fox News.
L.A. gets even in baseball's playoffs.
Broken bat, should end it. It does. Dodgers win 1-0. And they've split the first 2 games of this NLCS in Chicago.
Adrian Gonzalez's home run was the only offense the Dodgers needed, shutting out the Cubs on Fox Sports 1. Game 3 of the American League Championship Series is tonight. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News Radio.
Okay, Monday, October 17th, News Radio 1120 KPNW. Wake up call all over it. Some clouds, a little bit of rain, 60% chance, and a high of 60. Increasing to 90% overnight. Overnight dip down to 49. 52 currently at KPNW. We got high water all over, basically all over the state. Some reported, some not reported. If you're hitting I-5, milepost 70, 6 miles south of Wolf Creek, we have high water. And then 3 miles later, about 3.5, we've got some at 73.5. Grants Pass, high water all over the place. I-5, milepost 57, we have some on the highway there, and then just pretty much all around the community. Got, I won't say standing water, lots of, if you want to call it minor flooding, a lot of the streets are not flowing because of the debris fall, such as leaves and whatnot. Just be, as you get closer to the commute, just be conscious of people on the sidewalk. Sometimes it kind of creeps up on you if you're not paying attention, or you see people veering out of a lane if they're going excessive speed and they don't want to hit the water. They'll go into the left or right lane, and of course that's where you could be. So you got to be on the lookout. Mary King, she's a professor of economics. PhD in economics at UC Berkeley, Rhodes Scholar, Oxford, a BA in economics at Stanford. She is, yes, a 97. Mary King joining us in a couple of minutes on the Wake Up Call. Also news before that.
We'll have these stories coming up. We'll take a look at the storm that kind of wasn't, and the cleanup afterwards, and what we can expect weather-wise, at least for the next few days. We'll also tell you about, yes, they're in the mail. What are they, you're asking? What could it be? What could it be? We'll take a look at that. The Malheur Wildlife Refuge standoff trial, which continues, and more coming up on news, brought to you by Burrito Amigos, the friendly ones on KPNW.
News time 7:07.
Burrito Amigos is a big deal when it comes to big meals. Have you ever gone through ordering or putting together a big lunch or breakfast at the office, maybe a school or civic organization? It's a hassle. A lot of times, if you're feeding a large group, you have to go off a limited special menu, and you also have to pay a big special price, and you have to order it a month in advance. Then there's the extra charge for warming trays and chafing dishes. You get the picture. Here's the way Burrito Amigos works it. You can order anything you want to off of their menu. They'll loan you the chafing dishes and warming trays, and you can get up to 500 burritos with just a couple of days' notice. You can walk in the day of and order 50 burritos. Burrito Amigos will make sure you get what you want so you can have it the way you want it. Give Larry at Burrito Amigos a call, and he'll make sure you look good while Burrito Amigos does all the work. Burrito Amigos in Eugene and Springfield. They take the big hassle out of big orders, so you're the big hero. Burrito Amigos.
Things are brighter since the darkest days of the Great Recession. Oregon's economy is on the mend. But Arnie Roblin believes it's only a real recovery if no one is left behind. That drives Arnie forward, keeping him fighting for us. As a former high school principal, Arnie knows our state of the fight for full-day kindergarten and an increase in education funding to $7.4 billion only succeeds when we invest in our most precious resource, our children. That's why Arnie Roblin. Arnie knows we can't say we're great if every working Oregonian can't take care of their family. So he voted to raise the minimum wage and for affordable housing to stop workers getting priced out. Arnie Roblin believes older Oregonians have earned our respect. He's working to improve project independence and for tougher penalties for elder abuse. For our youngest child, for our oldest neighbor, Senator Arnie Roblin is making things better.
Paid for by Friends of Arnie Roblin.
Ramjack has your foundation solution. Ramjack can fix that.
CCB 146906.
Today's top stories. In depth. This is the Wake Up Call on News Radio 1120 KPNW.
Good morning. This look at the news brought to you by Burrito Amigos, the friendly ones featuring great breakfast burritos and fresh brewed locally roasted coffee for a tasty start to your morning. Here's what's going on. Well, Saturday's blow wasn't exactly the windageddon that it could have been, but there was a real concern, and there still is, for rain, which is not expected to subside for a while. Storm cells are traveling northeast. They're carrying heavy rain and occasionally windy conditions. Right now, the forecasts are calling for plenty of rain until this weekend. And as we've seen periodically over the last couple of days, we can even factor in the possibility of a thunderstorm or two. So after the weekend of wind, rain, even some debris flows, localized high water, and a number of downed trees, ODOT says this morning, for the most part, all major state highways in northeast Oregon are open and clear after delays over the weekend. Saturday afternoon, ODOT says they responded to 7 downed trees in a 15-minute period on multiple highways. They said high water closed Oregon 126 near Cushman, along with a section of US 26. Although the worst of the storm has passed, ODOT says with the continuing heavy rains, you can expect hazardous travel conditions. Their main concern right now is slides, particularly on highways headed toward the coast. And if you do come across high water, they give you this friendly reminder, take it easy because it's generally difficult to determine how deep that water really is. Well, a couple of days after a rare EF2 tornado whipped through Manzanita, volunteers have been working cleaning up the overwhelming damage left along its path through the town. Friday and Saturday were spent making quick repairs before the bigger storm or the second storm rolled through. Sunday, though, allowed the first real opportunity for them to clean up damage. There was substantial damage to a number of buildings in the area. Tyler Riles was on Highway 101 and stopped at a lookout when they saw the water spout moving toward Manzanita.
We pulled over to the side there on the last lookout that you could see over Manzanita and just watched that thing rip through town. It was pretty crazy.
The tornado ripped the roof off of some buildings. Other houses and businesses were damaged by falling trees, and no one was hurt. The National Weather Service says another tornado was confirmed at Oceanside. Springfield police are searching for a suspect involved in an armed robbery. He entered Jazzy's Deli on Pioneer Parkway East just before 11 Friday night, flashed a gun, and demanded cash. The suspect took money from a cash register and fled on foot. Police say he was headed west. He's described as a white male in his 30s or 40s, 5'10", wearing a dark rain jacket and a hood with a bandana over his mouth. The employee was the only witness. There were 5 customers, but they were in a video poker room during the robbery. Investigators say there were no injuries. So, watch your mailbox. The Oregon Voters Guide is on the way. Brad Ford has more.
If you're tired of the ballot measure ads and the candidates bickering, here's a sign the end is near. The Oregon Secretary of State's office is putting nearly 2 million voter guides into the mail. There's the English version, a Spanish version, and an audio version.
Voters with up-to-date registrations will soon be receiving their ballots.
You'll get that one online. Besides the race for the White House, the governor's office, federal, state, and local races, there are 7 Oregon ballot measures. You have until October 18th if you need to register to vote. Ballots go in the mail October 19th. Brad Ford, News Radio 1120 KPNW.
So before you even have a chance to vote on your $3 billion corporate sales tax proposal on the November 8th ballot, by the way, that's $3 billion annually. State lawmakers are already considering ways to redesign the tax in the next legislative session. The gross receipts tax contained in Measure 2097, make that 97, requires C-Corps, not LLCs, none of the rest, to pay the state 2.5% of their annual Oregon sales exceeding $25 million. Lawmakers could make small fixes to the law, like repealing exemptions for benefit companies, or do a complete overhaul, such as replacing the gross receipts tax with a different corporate tax scheme. As long as none of those proposals raise more money than 97, the legislature only needs a simple majority to make any changes. The FBI had many eyes and ears inside the occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and Brad Ford has that story.
During the defense stage in the trial of the 7 defendants accused in the takeover of the refuge, prosecutors say the FBI had 15 confidential sources feeding them information. Mark McConnell was identified as the driver of the vehicle where Ammon Bundy was arrested, and Terry Linnell was working inside of the buildings. But the other 13 informants remain unknown, and the defense wants their names revealed. They want to know whether they contributed to the alleged conspiracy. Defense testimony will continue on Monday, and the jury is expected to get the case next week. Brad Ford, KPNW.
Dozens of protesters chanting Black Lives Matter and other slogans marched for miles through Portland neighborhoods and stopping traffic before they finally ended outside the mayor's house and set up tents. The protesters, who set up more than a half a dozen tents on the sidewalk Friday evening, were angry that Mayor Charlie Hales worked with the city council to approve a new police contract that includes more pay for officers. Some motorists who were blocked during the evening's commute were upset. A cacophony of horns sounded at one intersection. The protest march blocked. Protesters said they were disappointed Hales was bringing the matter to a vote instead of letting his successor, Mayor-elect Ted Wheeler, take up the issue in January so there'd be more time for public input. The group's protest came to a quick end on Saturday as the protesting campers scampered away because of the bad weather. Well, 18 years after Oregon legalized marijuana for medical use and 2 years after voters said, sure, let's have recreational pot, many Oregonians think they'll be experiencing deja vu when they see the issue on their ballots in the November 8th election. You see, Oregon voters legalized recreational pot in 2014, but Measure 91 gave counties and towns the opportunity to opt out and ban pot businesses. So about 100 towns and a few counties did just that. Now residents of about 50 of them are going to be voting on the issue. A lot of money is riding on it because cannabis entrepreneurs invested vast sums in the business, only to see local jurisdictions outlaw pot commerce. Other states across the U.S. are also grappling with the issue of how to deal with the emerging marijuana business. A man faces sentencing in the death of his girlfriend in July of 2015. Jurors found 52-year-old Gregory Solberg guilty of killing 44-year-old Tanya Marie Fullen. A deputy and emergency responders found her body at her home in Drain. Solberg was arrested after being interviewed during the investigation. He faces a 25-year mandatory minimum sentence. Officials say a former employee for a mental health provider in Central Oregon has been accused of stealing $16,000 from developmentally disabled clients. Rick Treelevin, the executive director for Best Care Treatment Services, confirmed that the Oregon State Police has launched an investigation into allegations. The center's based in Madras. It's doing an investigation as well. Heather Martinez-Crow, the Madras facility director, says she first became suspicious after she reviewed questionable bank statements in September. The accused employee, whose name hasn't been released, was fired soon after. OSP confirmed the investigation was underway, but they're not commenting. Treelevin says the lack of oversight in employees' access to bank accounts may have played a role in stricter standards that now have been put in place. Dark Horse Comics and Oregon's Office of Emergency Management are teaming up to teach tsunami preparedness. Brad Ford says it isn't the first time they've come together to teach preparedness to Oregon's kiddies.
The partners are getting ready to introduce the comic Without Warning Tsunami for the Great Oregon Shakeout that happens October 20th. Althea Rizzo, the state's Geological Hazards Program coordinator, says the first Without Warning was released in 2014, a comic about an Oregon teen who reunites with her family after a major Cascadia earthquake.
Teenagers, young adults are fairly resistant to this message. We wanted something that was really specific to our hazard hazard here in Oregon.
Rizzo says his second comic about tsunamis is a continuation of the story, What to Do If an Earthquake and Resulting Tsunami Hits the Oregon Coast.
The comic book doesn't shy away from the reality of the situation.
You can check out the new comic at digital.darkhorse.com. I'm Brad Ford, KPNW.
A Klamath County judge is deciding whether to revoke Sheriff Frank Scraw's release agreement ahead of a February trial on accusations he roughed up suspects. Scraw has been out of custody and allowed to stay sheriff, but to be released without bail, he agreed not to participate in criminal stops or patrol the streets. But prosecutors say Scraw violated the agreement at least a dozen times. Scraw's attorney, Rosalind Lee, asked the judge not to revoke the sheriff's release. She said any violation occurred in the interest of public safety and officer safety. 2 men charged in speed racing and a crash that left a woman dead in Portland have been sentenced to 4 years in prison. Jose David Lara and Oswald Alexander Reyes were sentenced to 45 months in prison. They both pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide in the December 2015 death of Linda Johnston. Authorities say the 2 men, who were cousins, had been speeding side by side along a Portland road when one of them slammed into Johnston's vehicle. The 65-year-old victim died at the scene. Both Lara and Reyes stayed at the scene. They're not suspected of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and they did apologize in letters read aloud in court on Friday. So, having a large waistline, a high body mass index, and type 2 diabetes can raise your risk for liver cancer. That's according to a new study from the American Cancer Society. They found that all 3 factors were associated, as they say, robustly with liver cancer risk. Liver cancer rates have roughly tripled in the U.S. since the mid-1970s. The study crunched data on 1.5 million adults from 14 U.S. studies to look at an association between obesity and type 2 diabetes and liver cancer. None of the participants had cancer when the study began, but over time, 6.5% of the participants later were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is obesity-related. More than 2,100 of them developed liver cancer. Further number crunching showed that people with type 2 diabetes were 2.6 times more likely to be diagnosed with liver cancer. Also, the patient's body mass index increased, or as it did, so did the risk for cancer. An 8% increase in risk for liver cancer for every extra 2 inches added to the waistline. It's 7:21. This look at the news brought to you by Burrito Amigos, the friendly ones on KPNW.
Wake Up Call Sports on News Radio 1120 KPNW.
So absolutely no resemblance to the Clayton Kershaw in the postseason of past. The Dodger ace threw 7 innings and retired his first 14 batters, allowed 2 hits, striking out 6 and allowing 1 walk. Lots of zeros. 1 run going to LA's Adrian Gonzalez, and his home run, Kershaw, the savior again, and the series between the Dodgers and the Cubs tied at 1 game apiece after the 1-0 win for the Dodgers last night. Tonight, Game 3, the Tribe at Toronto, Cleveland up 2-0. NFL last night in primetime, the Houston Texans messed around for 3 quarters but got serious in the 4th, scoring 2 touchdowns against the Indianapolis Colts. Nick Novak kicked a 33-yard field goal in overtime to make the Texans 26-23 victors. They have a bit of a quarterback controversy in Dallas with a healthy Tony Romo coming back in a couple of weeks. Can he really take over the starting spot from rookie Dak Prescott, who's been absolutely stellar? He set the new mark for no interceptions to start a rookie season, threw for 3 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers. Cowboys foiled the Packers 30-16 in Lambeau, no less. Aaron Rodgers gets booed on Saturday. Of course, the OSU Beavers went the distance, giving number 21 Utah a challenge before losing 19-14. Soccer, Portland Timbers won their 5th straight at home and the 12th at home this season, a club record. NBA preseason, the Portland Trailblazers came up short against the Denver Nuggets, 106-97. Wake Up Call Sports on KPNW, brought to you by Max Muscle, where you can always try before you buy. Max Muscle on Franklin across from Market of Choice. News time, 7:22.
KPNW weather, brought to you by Ramjack West. Do you have foundation problems? Ramjack can fix that. Get your free quote at ramjackwest.com.
Good morning to you and yours. If you're headed out that door in the next few minutes, unfortunately, it looks like more of the same. Mostly cloudy skies. Temps out there right now in the upper 40s to low 50s. Light winds out of the south at 10 to 20. A few gusts up to 25. And yep, we're tracking showers off and on. As we move through the day, another pocket of low pressure will move through the area, bringing another round of showers this afternoon. Mostly cloudy skies. Temps are only going to rise up into the mid to upper 50s. 57 here in town. 60 to 70% chance of more showers. About a half inch is possible. But there is good news. If you're tired of all this rain, most of it looks like it'll start to wrap up Wednesday afternoon, bringing us a few days of at least decently dry weather. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Nation, the NBC 16 Weather Center, hoping you have a fantastic day, and don't forget your umbrella.
Does your home or business have foundation problems? Ramjack can fix that. Discover why Ramjack is the only foundation company you'll ever need. Get your free in-home evaluation at ramjackwest.com. Choose Ramjack. CCB 146906.
Hi, everybody. This is Don Essig with today's Motivational Minute, sponsored by Eugene's #1 electrical contractor, Builders Electric. Without a doubt, communication between human beings can be a very complicated procedure, but it can also be one in which perception plays a major role. For example, some perceptive person once said, "Smile when you answer the phone. The caller will hear it in your voice." Well, what a positive way to begin a new conversation, even if they can't see you. So start smiling when you get your next call, and listen closely when you dial your next one. I'll bet you can tell if the person is smiling or not. This is Don Essig with today's Motivational Minute. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, have a positive day.
This Motivational Minute was brought to you by Builders Electric, providing honest, reliable, and positive contracting throughout the Willamette Valley since 1960. That's Builders Electric, CCB number 4296.
Rodent droppings, insects, dirt, lost jewelry, and toys. What is in your heating and cooling ductwork? Contact Pacific Air Comfort, your local Carrier factory authorized dealer, to inspect your home's heating and cooling systems ductwork for free. Turn to the experts for your home, and their professional staff will inspect your heating and cooling system and ducts, offering solutions that address your needs. Clean air ducts or new Carrier equipment, they will make you Pacific Air comfortable. Pacific Air Comfort. Quality system design, quality Carrier equipment, quality installation, and outstanding 24/7 service and repairs. Visit PacificAirComfort.com. That's PacificAirComfort.com. Or call 541-342-5300. That's 541-342-5300 to receive Pacific Air Comfort's award-winning service today.
The holidays are right around the corner. If you are just starting out or if you need help staying on track, stop in and talk to a certified nutritionist, not a salesperson. We design a nutrition plan specifically for you. Max Muscle, Franklin Boulevard, across from the Market of Choice.
Mid-Lane Truck and Equipment Repair would like to remind you that weather is changing and winter is right around the corner. Getting your vehicle ready requires more than just installing snow tires. Your antifreeze protection needs to be checked, belts and hoses inspected and replaced if needed, and windshield wipers replaced for clear vision ahead. Stop by Mid-Lane Truck and Equipment Repair today to schedule an appointment, and don't let old man winter leave you out in the cold. Call 541-345-7570 or visit midlanetruckequiprepair.com.
I need to find a happy story right now.
Holloway in London.
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
Wayne County's Wake Up Call on News Radio 1120, KPNW.
News Radio 1120 KPNW. Thanks for joining us this morning. Joining us on the Wake Up Call, she is a professor of economics emerita at Portland State University. Got her PhD in economics at UC Berkeley, attended Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, and got a BA in economics at Stanford. She was at PSU for a number of years and was chair of the econ department there. And she joins us on the Wake Up Call this morning. It is Mary King. Mary, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Oh, I'm really glad to be here.
Okay, so you are a proponent of Measure 97, and at least from what we have heard, you at least had a hand in part in creating this particular ballot measure. Is that correct or incorrect? I don't want to ascribe something to you if that's not the case.
I did not have a hand in creating it.
Okay. But you have been working with the Yes on 97 campaign, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So...
Not in a paid capacity.
Right.
But I do support it, and I think a number of economists in the state support it. In fact, we drafted an economist letter of support, and nearly 90 people have signed it so far.
Okay. Is it fair also to say, though, that a number of economists here in Oregon as well have not supported it?
I really couldn't tell you about that. Haven't been following who isn't supporting it or what might be organized on the other side.
Okay. So let's talk about ballot measure 97 and what it says and what it does. It is a gross receipts tax. For folks that don't know what a GRT is, why don't you explain that?
I'd be happy to. And let me tell you, it doesn't create this gross receipts tax. Our corporate taxes right now, corporations pay a lot of taxes. They add up to the lowest burden among all the states at the moment, as has been described by two pro-business consultant studies. But when people think of taxes, they think of income taxes. We've got a corporate income tax, and we now, since 2009, have an alternative minimum tax because so many corporations pay so little in the corporate income tax. As they get all those big deductions federally, and as they're offshoring profits, the take from the corporate income tax has really fallen because Oregon corporate income tax follows the federal. So in 2009, the legislature created an alternative tax. That's a gross receipts tax, which means it's based on sales. And it actually created it based on a proposal by the Oregon Business Association. Now, what Measure 97 does is just work with existing language to increase the top rates so that the alternative minimum would stay absolutely the same until you get to a size where you have more than $25 million of sales in a year in Oregon. And then Measure 97 hikes up the rate on those corporations.
To 2.5%.
To 2.5% on all sales above $25 million. So they pay the same on the first 25 as they have been, and then on anything above, they'll pay 2.5%.
And what was the percentage rate on this gross receipts tax that you were saying that Oregon already has?
Well, it's hard to say because it isn't explicitly created as a percentage. It's created as a flat amount over a range of 25 million, and I'd have to sit down and do the math, and I'm sorry I don't have the figure in my head.
Okay. Why is it that you support this increase, or at least stated cost, of 2.5% gross receipts, which is taken off the top, over $25 million? Why is it that you personally support it?
I support it on a number of bases. I support it as a citizen, I support it as a parent, I support it as an educator, and I support it as an economist. Now, my husband's a fourth-generation Portlander, but we moved here 24 years ago, and my kids went through the schools, and I've been teaching in public higher education. And in both cases, I am very sorry to tell you, I have seen the continual decline in quality of education with cuts. And we now see it in our schools with the fourth worst graduation rate in the country, third highest class size, and a very short school year. We're fully 2 weeks short compared to what a lot of states require. So we are declining. And what this measure would do would be simply to restore the funding to our schools and other services that we have lost over the 25 years. So it's not as exciting as we might wish. What it would do is put us back to spending on a per-pupil basis to where we were in the late 80s. So it would put us back to providing for our kids what our parents provided for us. That's how far we've fallen.
My understanding is that this would add, I mean, if it were to go into effect, at least different analyses I've seen of it says $600 extra a year per student. Is that kind of the estimate that you've heard as well?
I don't know in those kind of terms.
Okay. if you don't know in those kind of terms, how can you say how much then and quantify how much it's going to add and how much it's going to help? You said it'll bring it back in real dollars to what our parents were putting into it, but yet you're saying you don't...
Well, yeah, that's the analysis I've seen, and it was dealing in aggregates, and it was dealing in per-pupil spending, and I just don't remember what the actual dollar amount in today's dollars that is. But I remember the bottom line of the analysis is that this is designed to get us just to the middle of the pack, just to where we were in the late 80s.
Well, what's interesting is Oregon spends approximately K through 12 about $9,698 per student, at least according to the federal stats. And as you said, we're fourth from the bottom in four-year graduation rates. But if you look, and our graduation rate is something like 73%. But you look at Oklahoma, that has an 84% four-year graduation rate. They're spending $7,698 a year. North Carolina has an 82.5%, and they're spending $8,455 a year. How can you say, or how can you guarantee that just by spending more money, it's going to change the outcomes when it appears, at least to some, that the problem is not necessarily with the amount of dollars that are spent, it's the job that we're actually doing, educating the students?
Well, of course it's both. And of course it's what things cost. And real estate costs more, for instance, in Portland, Oregon than it does in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So you don't get to pay the same thing to everybody, and you have to pay teachers a little bit more in urban areas and in the coastal states than you do in the middle of the country. I mean, so you don't get to pay the same for everything. And then you need to do the best job you can with what you have. And that's where we have to hire the best people we can and also hold them accountable.
Okay, and that's a good point. But California, which has an 80.47% graduation rate, spends $9,370 a year, and they have quite a higher percentage of English as second language students, which are more expensive to educate, and yet they still have better outcomes, even with more expensive prices, greatly more expensive prices in California for land, property, etc., than they do here in Oregon.
Yeah, and they've been paying attention for longer. You know, we based our Measure 5 on their Prop 13. They went through this whole thing earlier and turned around and had to change the strategy. Now, Massachusetts spends about double what we spend, and I think we should be paying attention to what people are doing well, trying to figure out what those best practices are, and pursuing them. It's never a case that the dollar amount tells you everything, but in general, I think we all have the experience. You get what you pay for. And I can tell you, based on decades of cuts at Portland State, you cannot always do more with less. There comes a point where you simply do less with less. And you replace full-time people with part-time people, and you make the classes bigger and bigger and bigger, and the impact is worse quality.
Let's talk a little bit about who pays for this. There has been quite a healthy debate going on that this extra 2.5% gross receipts tax is essentially going to fall into the laps of the consumers, the folks that go into, let's say, Kroger's, or the folks that fill up the tank of gas. Whereas the Yes campaign says, no, it's not going to increase the consumer prices. What's your take on it?
Well, I think there are a number of reasons to think it's not going to be passed through into consumer prices. For one thing, how hard these companies are fighting this ballot measure tells you they think they're going to pay it. That's a starter. The next is this tax will affect 0.25% of companies doing business in Oregon. They are going to have to compete with people who are not affected by the tax. The next is that although our businesses in Oregon pay the lowest combined taxes from all sources of any state in the country, we do not see that we pay lower prices at the grocery store. If you go to Washington, where taxes are higher and where business taxes will still be higher if this passes, they're paying the same prices in the grocery store that we are. So if we are not getting the benefit from lower taxes now, why would we expect to be paying higher prices when Washington isn't?
Well, but that's not necessarily true. Over the past decade, the Bureau of Economic Analysis and the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Census have collaborated developing price indexes for states and major metropolitan areas, and they looked at Washington, and what they said was, and what we're seeing is, the recent findings indicate the price level in Washington state is 4.8% higher than Oregon's.
I don't think that's accurate. When you talk to economists, those inflation bases cannot be compared across area, and when economists say, okay, we still have to compare cost of living, they'll rely on housing as the single item that really varies much.
All right, so they're looking at housing, but as I said, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Census are actually looking at all prices, and we're talking about groceries and everything else. Washington has a gross receipts tax, and they're still saying that it's, like I said, 4.8% higher than the U.S., or than Oregon.
Well, we're going to disagree on part of that. But the other thing I will say about Washington's gross receipt tax is Washington's gross receipt tax is on every single business in the state, which means you get the issue of pyramiding, as they call it, where companies who buy from each other have to pay so that everybody in the supply chain, let me say, is paying the gross receipts tax so that it piles up. And you see it in some industries where they have quite a complex supply chain, having to pay the gross receipts tax over and over and over and over as they all sell to each other. Now, that's the kind of thing I don't think we're going to see because we're putting it on far fewer businesses. And those businesses that are going to be more affected than others, the grocers, are what they call, very vertically integrated, meaning that they have purchased all those potential suppliers. The whole supply chain is within the company. They've got the trucking, they've got the distribution, they've got the brands, and they are all one operation rather than buying from people who may have been previously taxed. And as I say, far fewer people are going to be previously taxed.
Well, then why is it that we keep seeing from the Legislative Review Office here in the state of Oregon that is going to take place?
Well,
that they're
the
worried about?
Legislative Review Office report, I'm glad you asked, because the thing is, the first part of it where they're talking about who will pay it and how much will be paid, they can estimate quite precisely because they are working from the tax rolls there. But the second part, where they're saying what will the economic impact be, they are using a model that cannot capture precisely at all what will happen for a number of reasons. They cannot go at the firm level. They can only act as if there are 28 actors in the economy, 28 different industries. And what they have done then is to model the tax as if it would be paid at a lower rate by every business in the state. They have not modeled Measure 97 because they can't. And so they've modeled a gross receipts tax like Washington's rather than like the one that's on the ballot. And the other thing that people don't realize about that model is although we have been for a couple of decades with corporations at historic rates of profit, there are no profits in that model in the way that most people understand them. The only profits in the models that the Legislative Revenue Office are using, and everybody's using for this kind of thing, say businesses are earning the minimum amount of profit necessary just to stay in business. And if they earn $1 less, they're going to have to pass on that cost to their consumers. So that just is not reality. There is no way in that model that you can show that this tax would be paid out of profits because they don't have that kind of profit in the model.
But even the Northwest Economic Research Center, which their report, which was, by the way, funded by Yes on 97, said it was the same thing, that it was regressive, that it was tax pyramiding, they said the same thing, and that's your own.
Well, if you read it more carefully, they said they doubted that there would be tax pyramiding. They're worried about regressive, but if you look at that, they are using the same kind of model. This is a computable general equilibrium model, and the important part of that is computable. You can get an answer. You can compute an answer. And to do that, you have to extremely simplify your picture of the economy. And in both cases, those models do not include profits as the way we understand them. So if you don't have profits in the model, you have to show that somebody else pays the tax. It's a given before you get started.
I've got a question here off the email I wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Ask her if she understands observer's bias.
Observer's bias. Tell me about observer's bias.
Well, observer's bias, that somebody observing it that maybe feels one way or the other about it is going to potentially have a biased approach or a bias towards a particular outcome.
Well, I think the psychologists say that we pick up the information around us that suits our view already. Maybe that's what observer's bias is. But I will tell you that, I have been thinking about how we can fund our schools for 25 years, and you think about all the various possibilities there are, and they get rejected. I mean, we understand that, even though I would very much like to see our schools funded. I think it's absolutely fundamental for economic opportunity, for economic mobility, for our kids to be able to compete and even to participate, because it's low and middle income families for whom public schools make the biggest difference. I've been looking at that, but I would still reject a sales tax as a way to get there, because that, everyone agrees, is regressive. But we're at a point right now where corporations, what has fallen over those 25 years is the amount of money coming from corporations. Households and small businesses are paying as much as ever, which is why we feel we have observer bias that taxes are high. But corporation take has fallen, and that is directly responsible for where we are. Corporations used to pay a fifth of the corporate income of the income taxes. Now they pay a 15th.
He also asks, then, if she admits to observer's bias, are you a member of PERS and the OEA?
Yeah, and I'm not a member of the OEA, but I will tell you that PERS is a completely separate issue. The state is on the hook for PERS unless and until they can figure out a legal hook and a legal way out, and they're trying.
Well, wouldn't this be a legal way out for them? Even though section. Well, let me read section 3 of the ballot measure. It says, and by the way, Mary King is a professor of economics emeritus and ran the economics department at Portland State. She's with us here on the Wake Up Call. Section 3, all of the revenue, and I underline all of the revenue generated from the increase in the tax created by this 2016 Act shall be used to provide additional funding for public early childhood and kindergarten through 12th grade education, health care, and services for senior citizens. Revenue distributed pursuant to this section shall be in addition to other funds distributed for the same. How can you guarantee that that's not going to PERS, knowing that even the Legislative Council has said that the legislature is not required to spend the money the way that it's laid out in this particular initiative?
Well, I think that's the wrong question. I mean, I can't guarantee that the sun is going to come up in the east tomorrow morning, but I'm very sure of it. Now, there are a few things happening here. For one thing, we will have the will of the voters will have been expressed. We know the fact that the bipartisan legislature has as a top priority funding our public schools, and if they had the revenue, that is what they would do. We also know that public schools and services like public health and senior services comprise, the big part of our state spending, and so there aren't a lot of other choices. But the third thing is the PERS issue is completely separate. Unless the state goes bankrupt, they have to pay the PERS. They have to figure out a different fix. If they don't have this money, they still have to pay it.
Okay, but if they get this money, it's going to make it easier for them to pay it, because there's nothing in this particular ballot measure that states that they have to continue funding education at its current rate as a percentage of general funds and add this on top of it. There is nothing that keeps them from basically saying, okay, well, this $3 billion a year can go over here, but we're going to shift this other money we were spending over here back over into PERS. There's nothing that's going to keep them from doing that.
That's the way our state government works. We give the legislature that permission. But
so
it
then
does not matter. It does not matter.
Well, yeah, it does matter.
No, they are not going to have the choice to not fund PERS. They don't. If they can have no money, unless they go bankrupt, they have to fund it. That just doesn't make sense. They're facing a shortfall of $1.4 billion next biennium, and the judge doesn't say, okay, you don't have to fund PERS. They're trying. They are looking. They would like to.
Okay, but you're right. They're going to have to fund it one way or the other, and this would be a perfect way for them to do that, whereas all those other programs that this money is going to start going to are just going to end up with the same level of funding that they have now while the money gets diverted into PERS. It's a shell game.
We do not owe PERS $3 billion a year. They underfunded the PERS system.
They have
but
$22
they don't owe
billion.
them that much.
Mary, you know as well as anybody does, they have $22 billion in unfunded liabilities right now, with another $1.8 coming in the next biennium. It's
not $3 billion a year. So what do you think is going to happen to the schools and our public services if we don't get more revenue in there? Where do you think those cuts are going to come from?
So you do believe then that this money, one way or another, is going to make it into PERS?
I believe every dollar that goes into the state from any source, including the lottery, which is currently bigger than the corporate income tax, is going to get funded for what they have to legally spend on, and that these are two completely different questions. PERS needs a fix. That is completely separate from whether or not we raise the revenue that will be able to adequately support our schools. I mean, are we going to cut off our nose to spite our face? That makes no sense at all.
But what you're still saying is that we're still going to have to pay it, and it doesn't make any difference where the money comes from.
Nobody thinks we're not going to have to pay PERS. How are we not going to pay it? They need to find a legal way out. They haven't found it yet.
Okay, you want to move on from PERS? I mean, if you want to finish.
I do.
The point.
I think it's a good idea. I think we're saying the same thing over. I do not understand why people connect these, because not passing this measure does not fix the PERS problem. We've got a PERS problem, and we have a school funding problem.
Going back to about who pays for this, and you said that for the most part the corporations will.
Yes.
Mayor Kate Brown, or Governor Kate Brown, said, and I'm quoting her from Oregon Public Broadcasting, Oregonians are smart enough to realize there will be that they will bear some of these increased costs. Are you saying that the governor was wrong?
I'd say I disagree with her. I think we're both talking about a future that's unclear. Nobody knows the future. I disagree with her assessment.
All right. PGE has already said that they, because of this, are going to be asking for 4% more per year in utility rates because of ballot measure 97. Isn't that going to affect people's pocketbooks? But Pacific Power has said the same, by the way.
They have. I mean, part of our utilities come through public utility districts, and so they're unaffected. But the investor-owned utilities are definitely going to be affected, and I think there are multiple possibilities here. I mean, one thing is PGE is sitting on a lot of deferred taxes itself. They pay very little in taxes because of deferrals and depreciations. So I think it's an open question whether or not anybody would approve a rate increase when they haven't paid the taxes they've already collected from us. So that's something, for starters, that you are not hearing them talk about. And second, I think if that anything would come through, that we're going to see a fix on that. I don't think we're going to allow rates to go up behind us. That's my personal assessment.
What do you make of the Legislative Council saying that the legislature is not beholden to spend any of this money on the things that are outlined in this measure, and that the Oregon Constitution essentially affirms that?
We've always known that. Look what they did with the marijuana. I mean, people cannot complain either, oh, you can't make policy by referendum, or you can't let the legislature make any decisions. Our system is that people write referendums, make them as specific as they can within the parameters of what's allowed, and then the legislature has to deal with what is the will of the voters, and the voters have to hold them accountable. That is our system. It's our system for every referendum ever.
So then you agree that essentially they can use this money however they want to.
They can always spend the taxes that are raised however they want to, and it is the job of the constituents to tell them exactly what we want, and one way we do that is by voting for a measure that says we want this money in the schools, early childhood education. Both of those two things are the single biggest economic development strategy most successful possible for a state to make. Anybody who's thinking about how we're going to be a prosperous and inclusive state economy would support them. I think if the legislators decided, we decide instead we're going to have a fleet of yachts, that there will be real serious issues. People will not be reelected.
Mary King is a professor emeritus of economics from Portland State University. We're out of time, unfortunately. Mary, thanks for joining us on the Wake Up Call. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
It is 7:54, News Radio 1120, KPNW.
The Bloomberg Market Report, sponsored by Pacific Continental Bank, serving your business and community in Eugene for over 40 years.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Earnings season begins in earnest today. More than 80 members of the S&P 500 report earnings this week. Bank of America topped expectations this morning. IBM and Netflix report after the bell. Stocks are little changed in early trading. Hasbro grabbing the Disney Princess franchise away from Mattel paid off in its latest quarterly results. Sales of toys aimed at girls surged 57% to $462 million in the third quarter. There are finally some signs of life in the wheat market. Prices surged last week by the most in 15 months after the Department of Agriculture unexpectedly cut its forecast of global inventories. Futures are crawling back from tough times earlier this year, when signs of the biggest supply overhang ever sent prices in August to the lowest in a decade. PepsiCo ramping up its pledge to reduce the number of sugary beverages it sells over the next decade. At least two-thirds of the company's beverage volume will have no more than 100 calories from added sugars per 12-ounce serving by 2025. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Measure 97 would impose $6 billion in new taxes on the sales of goods and services in Oregon, the largest tax increase in Oregon history.
Promoters of 97 claim this tax would only affect big corporations.
But the state of Oregon's own study and independent fact checks by nonpartisan organizations like the Tax Foundation show that claim is false.
That's because 97 would tax the sales of businesses that provide most goods and services in Oregon, not their profits.
So the costs would be passed on to consumers and businesses of all sizes through higher prices for everything from food, gas, and electricity to medicine and health care.
The Oregonian newspaper checked the facts and called Measure 97 a hidden sales tax on every person in Oregon.
The Eugene Register-Guard warned that the politicians could do anything they please with the money.
The Bend Bulletin called it sneaky.
The Portland Tribune said 97 is based on deception.
Check the facts yourself and vote no on Measure 97's costly and deceptive tax on sales.
Paid for by Defeat the Tax on Oregon Sales.
It's fall. That can mean football weather or a blazing heat wave, depending on what Mother Nature has in mind. Don't sweat Mother Nature's moodiness. Talk to the home comfort specialists at Beamer Heating and Sheet Metal for help. They have advanced heating and cooling systems from Lennox that can keep your home perfectly comfortable, no matter what's going on outside. And right now, Beamer Heating and Sheet Metal is offering up to a $1,600 rebate and 9.99% financing on a qualifying new Lennox system. That's up to a $1,600 rebate on an innovative, highly efficient heating and cooling system that can put you in control of your home comfort and your monthly utility bills. So seize the day. Call the experts at Beamer Heating and Sheet Metal right now at 541-688-5004. That's 541-688-5004. Or visit them online at beamerheating.com. License number 4483.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. I feel like I'm choking.
Prevent your child's next asthma attack. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
I'm Jeremy. And I'm Chris with Home Comfort. When we say the one to call, the one means no matter what the problem. From security lighting, generator systems, panel changeouts, service upgrades, with technicians available 24/7.
Or HVAC, from routine cleanings to breakdowns. Home Comfort's locally supported by Mitsubishi Electric. So their Mitsubishi Electric factory-trained technicians will ready your house for any season.
Make one call to 541-345-2838.
Home Comfort, the one to call.
Get on down to your local Kubota dealer today, where the deals have never been hotter on new Kubota tractors. You can get low payments of up to 84 months with 0% APR, incredible customer rebates, and a 6-year limited powertrain warranty on new BX, B, L, and MX tractors. There have never, ever been deals like this. Now through December 31st, 2016. Call toll-free 1-800-794-4992 for details about costs and terms. For complete warranty details, see Kubota.com or your authorized Kubota dealer. See Mid-Valley Tractor on Highway 99. Great prices, great products from people you can trust.
The Bloomberg Market Report, sponsored by Pacific Continental Bank, serving your business and community in Eugene for over 40 years.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Earnings season begins in earnest today. More than 80 members of the S&P 500 report earnings this week. Bank of America topped expectations this morning. IBM and Netflix report after the bell. Stocks are little changed in early trading. Hasbro grabbing the Disney Princess franchise away from Mattel paid off in its latest quarterly results. Sales of toys aimed at girls surged 57% to $462 million in the third quarter. There are finally some signs of life in the wheat market. Prices surged last week by the most in 15 months after the Department of Agriculture unexpectedly cut its forecast of global inventories. Futures are crawling back from tough times earlier this year, when signs of the biggest supply overhang ever sent prices in August to the lowest in a decade. PepsiCo ramping up its pledge to reduce the number of sugary beverages it sells over the next decade. At least 2/3 of the company's beverage volume will have no more than 100 calories from added sugars per 12-ounce serving by 2025. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
We report, you decide. This is News Radio 1120 KPNW, Eugene, Springfield, USA.
Fox News Radio, I'm Dave Anthony. Donald Trump tweets Republican leaders are naive for denying what he claims is large-scale voter fraud happening. Then he says, we all have to come together to win. He'll rally in Wisconsin later today, while Hillary Clinton keeps a low profile prepping for Wednesday's debate on Fox News Channel. The FBI has just released documents dating back to Clinton's Secretary of State email controversy.
There are serious allegations that there was discussion of a quid pro quo.
The congressional Republicans want to investigate as a possible offer from a State Department employee to the FBI to change classified markings on an email.
And the deal, we were told, went like this, that in exchange for changing the classification on a highly sensitive email, the State Department would provide for the FBI more slots for their agents overseas. These slots at the overseas embassies are highly coveted by the Bureau.
Fox's Catherine Herridge, the FBI says there was no quid pro quo, no changes were made. The fight for Mosul is on. A battle to take the Iraqi city back from ISIS.
The operation seems to be focused on the territory and towns outside of Mosul. We're getting reports that Peshmerga forces and Iraqi security forces have seized several of the towns out there. The U.S.-led coalition has begun its air bombing campaign and also heavy artillery.
Fox's Connor Powell. A man who took a shot at an infamous neighborhood watchman, George Zimmerman, in Florida, is being locked up. Fox's Evan Brown live in Miami.
Yeah, Dave, George Zimmerman has never really gone quietly into obscurity following his acquittal in the killing of Trayvon Martin, claiming self-defense. But in 2014, he got into a road rage incident in Lake Mary, Florida, with another man named Matthew Apperson. He apparently recognized Zimmerman and shot at him. He was charged with attempted murder, found guilty on Friday, and this morning a judge sentenced Apperson to 20 years in prison, Dave.
Evan, on Wall Street, a little bit of selling to start the week. The Dow's down 18 points, the Nasdaq's falling 4. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
This tip of the week brought to you by Neurospine Institute.
Neurospine Institute is a healing place that offers sophisticated diagnostic and surgical services with a range of treatment options. Their specialists are leaders in their profession in addressing back and neck injuries, pain management, and sports medicine. Treatments include neurosurgery, physical therapy, minimally invasive procedures, and pain management. Equipped with sophisticated diagnostic and surgical capabilities, plus a caring staff committed to each patient's well-being. They'll work closely with your primary care or referring physician to ensure the best care and treatment for your unique situation. Visit neurospinellc.com today and get your life back.
Are you living with chronic pain? The specialists at Neurospine Institute can diagnose the problem and develop a personalized treatment plan to address your symptoms. Their comprehensive services include clinical and surgical procedures, sports medicine, physical therapy, medical imaging, and pain management. Neurospine Institute's medical professionals will work closely with your primary care or referring physician to ensure that you receive the best care and treatment. They serve all of Western Oregon with 2 locations, the main campus in Eugene and their Roseburg clinic. Visit neurospinellc.com today and get your life back.
An arrest in Colorado days after someone planted a bomb outside a police station. Fox's Tanya J. Powers is on the case live.
Well, Dave, the police have taken the man into custody over the weekend in Nederland, Colorado, which is near Denver. A detective found the device in a backpack outside the police station last Tuesday, brought it inside thinking it was lost property. Robots searched the device, and it was eventually detonated in the parking lot of the town's main retail complex, which is a strip mall that houses the police department. Investigators say it was an active explosive that failed to detonate. Now, it's not clear what the charges are that this man would face, Dave.
Tanya, father and son and a third man have been arrested in Kentucky over a shootout early Sunday morning between people in 2 parked cars. Killed in the gunfire was Trinity Gay, the teenage daughter of U.S. Olympic sprinter Tyson Gay. The flood cleanup continues in North Carolina.
I want to say to them to keep their heads up, keep their hope and peace in God.
She's a Red Cross volunteer. 26 people died. 100,000 homes and buildings were damaged at an estimated cost of $1.5 billion. A legendary voice we haven't heard for quite a while sings again.
Randy Travis, whose life was threatened by a stroke 3 years ago, sang during his induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame. The country star performed Amazing Grace at Sunday night's ceremony in Nashville. The stunned crowd was brought to tears because they were able to hear a voice many feared had been silenced by the 2013 stroke, but revived by years of rehabilitation and therapy. Travis was inducted along with fiddler Charlie Daniels and record producer Fred Foster. Jacqueline Carl, Fox News.
Hours before Game 3 of the American League Championship Series in Toronto, an activist Canadian lawyer is going to court, trying to block the Cleveland Indians from using their team name and logo, wanting them to be ordered to just be called the Cleveland team. The Indians lead the Blue Jays 2-0. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News Radio.
Hey, it's KPNW, Monday, October 17, 2016. That date stands out. October 17th, 1989. I lived about a half hour from the epicenter of the Loma Prieta earthquake, 6.9 on this day. So as we averted a disaster over the weekend, we acknowledge and think about the craziness. Even San Francisco, many, many miles away from Santa Cruz area, huge damage. What a time that was to be driving through the city streets of San Francisco. October 1-7. So get ready. The Bay Series was, I think, kind of how the nation found out about it with the broadcast, the Bay World Series. 8:06 here today. A little bit of cloud cover, some rain, and a high of about 60. A 90% chance of rain overnight. Overnight dip down to 49. Going to have some rain off and on for the next couple of days, so just be ready for it. 53 degrees, Highway 99. 7 miles south of Monmouth, we got a crash at milepost 70, 7 miles south of Monmouth. Had some standing water on, some high water on Beltline. And that's kind of, it's causing a little bit of a problem there, but just be ready for it at milepost 8. Beltline, we got some high water. Grants Pass, Roseburg, pretty much all up and down the I-5 corridor. We've got some high water out there. So if you're hitting the highway, just be careful out there and be on the look-see for some heavy precipitation. Honor Flight crew coming up.
Taking a look at some of the emails this morning after our interview with Mary King, a supporter of Measure 97 and a former economist at Portland State. The subject line is Dream World. Has she had employees, had to meet payroll, keep the doors open to provide work for families? I doubt she's ever experienced day-to-day stresses of business operation. As much as I dislike tax increases, the sales tax is actually the most fair system. Tourist taxes would help the coffers. We help other states with our travels without complaint. Writes another. The professor said she's been wondering for how we're going to pay for education for 25 years. Well, how did we pay for it prior to the spotted owl legislation? Answer, logging. Tell her I found the answer she's been looking for 25 years. Julie writes, Washington State is so money hungry, they're now making out of state businesses pay their B&O tax when they sell into the state. Randy writes, no, Washington doesn't have pyramiding. They have what they call a reseller exemption, says Randy. A lot of people emailing this morning about the professor and her comments in regards to Measure 97, which, you know, she can say whatever she wants, but even the Legislative Review Office, the NRC report, which was done by Portland State, which incidentally was funded by Yes on 97, and the governor have all said that there will be increased costs. Even a professor from the University of Oregon who deals with tax law, Roberta Mann, said, and she is a supporter, by the way, of Measure 97, has said that it's going to cost consumers more, and that companies like, for instance, Comcast, which has a virtual monopoly, are no doubt going to be raising their costs for consumers. You know, it's amazing the disconnect. And, you know, for the most part, the Measure 97, the Yes on 97 people aren't even acknowledging the fact their own report said it was going to raise consumers' prices and that there would be pyramiding. You know, you have to, and we keep hearing this, well, it's just these huge corporations. Well, Powell's Books has already said they're wondering how they're going to keep their doors open. Oh, by the way, that's an Oregon business. The Tillamook Creamery has come out against this, saying that it's going to be passed along for the consumer. Even Umpqua Dairy, the owners of it, if you read the Register Guard, the two owners of Umpqua Dairy had a very lengthy op-ed piece in the Register Guard. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. I think it was a Sunday edition, where they came out and said the same thing. They've already crunched the numbers. They know what it's going to cost. And it is pyramiding. It's 8:10, News Radio, 1120, KPNW. Do you spend much time thinking about meat? Probably just the word meat evokes some sort of picture in your mind. At Burrito Amigos, they spend quite a bit of time dealing with people who want their meat. And they probably have more types of meat prepared in more ways than most fancy sit-down places. Consider Atabata, chili verde pork, nice and spicy, a new personal favorite. Chicken, carne asada, shredded Angus beef. Actually, anything with beef at Burrito Amigos is Angus. It's more tender. There's also carnitas, real cod fillets for fish tacos and burritos, shrimp, tongue, yep, chorizo, link sausage, machaca, tofu, which is meat for people who don't eat meat. And of course, there's the king of meat, bacon, 2 different types. And you can have your favorite type of meat in burritos, tacos, tortas, tostados, or on nachos. You make the call. Burrito Amigos will make it meaty or tofu-y if that's your choice. Variety and making you happy is what it's all about. Burrito Amigos, dare I say, they are the meaty ones. In Eugene and Springfield, I'm Bill London, and I approve of meat and Burrito Amigos.
Cold weather is coming. Are you prepared? Ductless heat pumps can save you up to 50% on your heating costs. This is Rick Gregg from the Heat Pump Store in Eugene. Let me and my local team of ductless heating experts save you money, keep you comfortable, and get you the most utility rebates and tax credits available. Call 541-632-3357. That's 632-3357. Or visit theheatpumpstore.com.
They got me pump, 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 the heat pump. Pump Store.
CCB 177-229.
Mechanics know that Hunter equipment is the best and most sophisticated tool available for precision alignments, particularly for luxury cars and trucks. That alignment is now available in Eugene at Hunter Brake and Alignment, 1040 Tyen Street, across from the DMV in Eugene. Owners Rick and Jeff offer the best technology at a better price. No appointment necessary. They can align any make or model of vehicle. It's Hunter Precision Alignment and brake service at a great price. Drive in to Hunter Brake and Alignment, just off West 11th on Tyen. Big or small, they align them all.
It's the big happenings in the Valley and the state. This is the Wake Up Call on 1120 KPNW with Bill London.
Top of the day to you. This look at the news brought to you by Burrito Amigos, the friendly ones, featuring great breakfast burritos and fresh brewed locally roasted coffee for a tasty start to your morning. Thanks for being with us this morning. Glad to have you aboard. So Saturday's blow wasn't exactly the windageddon that it could have been, but right now there's still a concern, and that's for rain, which isn't expected to subside for a while. Storm cells are traveling northeast, and they're carrying heavy rain and occasionally windy conditions, but nothing like even the 45-mile-an-hour gusts that we saw on Saturday. Right now, the forecasters, though, are calling for a lot of rain until this weekend. And as we've seen periodically over the last couple of days, the possibility of a thunderstorm. So after the wind, the rain, and some debris flows, localized high water, and a number of downed trees, ODOT says this morning that all major state highways in northwest Oregon are open and clear for the most part without delays. Saturday afternoon, ODOT responded to 7 downed trees in about a 15-minute period on multiple highways. High water closed Oregon 126 near Cushman along with a section of Highway 26. 101 also was dealing with high water, particularly in Reedsport and Coos Bay. Although the worst of the storm has passed, ODOT says with the continuing heavy rains, hazardous travel conditions could still exist, and the main concern right now to be worried about, slides, particularly on highways headed toward the coast. And by the way, if you do come across high water, take it easy. Generally, it's difficult to determine how deep it really is. Well, after a rare F2 tornado whipped through Manzanita, volunteers were working over the weekend to try and clean up the overwhelming damage that was left along its path right through the middle of downtown. Friday and Saturday, they were making quick repairs before the storm rolled through. Then Sunday was the first real opportunity for them to clean up the damage, and there was substantial damage to a number of buildings in the area and homes. Tyler Riles was on Highway 101. He saw the water spout move out of the water and towards Manzanita.
We pulled over to the side there on the last lookout that you could see over Manzanita and just watched that thing rip through town. It was pretty crazy.
The tornado ripped the roof off some buildings. Other houses and businesses were damaged by falling trees. No one was hurt. The National Weather Service says another tornado was confirmed on the same day, not all that long after, near Oceanside. Springfield police are searching for a suspect involved in an armed robbery. The suspect entered Jazzy's Deli on Pioneer Parkway East just before 11 Friday night, flashed a gun, and demanded cash. The suspect then grabbed money out of the cash register and fled on foot to the west. The suspect, described as a white male in his 30s or 40s, 5'10", he was wearing a dark rain jacket with a hood and a bandana over his mouth. The employee was the only witness. 5 customers were also in the business, but they were in the back poker room during the robbery. Investigators say there were no injuries. So, watch your mailbox. The Oregon Voters Guide is on the way. Brad Ford has more.
If you're tired of the ballot measure ads and the candidates bickering, here's a sign the end is near. The Oregon Secretary of State's office is putting nearly 2 million voter guides into the mail. There's the English version, a Spanish version, and an audio version.
Voters with up-to-date registrations will soon be receiving their ballots.
You'll get that one online. Besides the race for the White House, the governor's office, federal, state, and local races, there are 7 Oregon ballot measures. You have until October 18th if you need to register to vote. Ballots go in the mail October 19th. Brad Ford, News Radio 1120 KPNW.
Okay, so Measure 97 is going to be in that voter's guide that you're going to be seeing, and it is a $3 billion annual corporate sales tax. State lawmakers already are considering ways to redesign the tax in the 2017 legislative session. Yep, they can do that. The gross receipts tax contained in Measure 97 requires only C Corps to pay the state 2.5% of their annual Oregon sales exceeding $25 million. Lawmakers could make small fixes to the law, like repealing exemptions for so-called benefit companies, or just do a complete overhaul and replace the gross receipts tax with a completely different corporate tax scheme. They can do that. As long as none of the proposals raise more money than Measure 97, the legislature only needs a simple majority to approve any changes. 18 years after Oregon legalized medical marijuana for use and 2 years after voters said yeah to the use of recreational pot, a number of Oregonians may think they're experiencing deja vu when they see the issue on their ballots on the November 8th election. When Oregon voters legalized recreational pot in 2014, Measure 91 gave counties and towns the opportunity to opt out and ban pot businesses. Well, about 100 towns and a few counties did that. Now residents of about 50 of them are going to be voting on it again. A lot of money is riding, by the way, on the outcome. A number of cannabis entrepreneurs invested large sums in the business only to see local jurisdictions blow it up. Other states across America are also dealing with the issue or trying to of how to deal with emerging marijuana businesses. So we're finding out the FBI had many eyes and ears inside the occupation of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. Brad Ford has the story.
During the defense stage in the trial of the 7 defendants accused in the takeover of the refuge, prosecutors say the FBI had 15 confidential sources feeding them information. Mark McConnell was identified as the driver of the vehicle where Ammon Bundy was arrested, and Terry Linnell was working inside of the buildings. But the other 13 informants remain unknown, and the defense wants their names revealed. They want to know whether they contributed to the alleged conspiracy. Defense testimony will continue on Monday, and the jury is expected to get the case next week. Brad Ford, KPNW.
Dozens of protesters chanting Black Lives Matter and other slogans marched several miles through Portland neighborhoods, stopping traffic before finally ending outside the mayor's house and pitching tents on Friday. The protesters, who set up more than a half a dozen tents on the sidewalk Friday evening, were mad that Mayor Charlie Hales worked with the city council to approve a new police contract, including raises for officers. Some motorists who were blocked during the evening's commute were also upset. With a cacophony of horns sounding at one intersection, the protest marchers blocked. Protesters said they were disappointed Hales was bringing the matter to a vote instead of letting his successor, Mayor-elect Ted Wheeler, take up the issue in January so there'd be more time for public input. The group's protest came to a close on Saturday as the protesters scampered away because the weather was bad. A man faces sentencing in the death of his girlfriend in July of 2015. Jurors found that 52-year-old Gregory Solberg was guilty of killing 44-year-old Tanya Marie Fullen. A deputy and emergency responders found her body at her home in Drain. Solberg was arrested after being interviewed during the investigation. He's now facing a 25-year minimum sentence. Well, Dark Horse Comics and Oregon's Office of Emergency Management have teamed up to teach tsunami preparedness. Brad Ford says it's not the first time they've come together to teach preparedness for Oregon's youth.
The partners are getting ready to introduce the comic Without Warning Tsunami for the Great Oregon Shakeout that happens October 20th. Althea Rizzo, the state's Geological Hazards Program coordinator, says the first Without Warning was released in 2014, a comic about an Oregon teen who reunites with her family after a major Cascadia earthquake.
Teenagers, young adults are fairly resistant to this message. We wanted something that was really specific to our hazard here in Oregon.
Rizzo says his second comic about tsunamis is a continuation of the story, What to Do If an Earthquake and Resulting Tsunami Hits the Oregon Coast.
The comic book doesn't shy away from the reality of the situation.
You can check out the new comic at digital.darkhorse.com. I'm Brad Ford, KPNW.
I wonder if it'll have thought balloons. It's 8:21. This look at the news brought to you by Burrito Amigos, the friendly ones, here on KPNW.
Wake Up Call Sports on News Radio 1120 KPNW.
Absolutely no resemblance to the Clayton Kershaw in the postseason of past. The Dodger ace threw 7 innings and retired his first 14 batters, allowed 2 hits, striking out 6, allowing 1 walk. Lots of zeros. 1 run that attributed to Adrian Gonzalez with his home run. Kershaw and the Dodgers down the Cubbies 1-0 to tie it up. And at Game 3, the Tribe at Toronto, Cleveland up 2-0. NFL last night in prime time, the Houston Texans Messed around for 3 quarters, but then got serious in the fourth, scoring 2 touchdowns against the Indianapolis Colts. Of course, in the extra period, Nick Novak kicked a 33-yard field goal for the overtime win, 26-23 Texans over the Colts. They had a bit of a quarterback controversy going on in Dallas right now. With a healthy Tony Romo coming back in a couple of weeks, can he really take over the starting spot from rookie Dak Prescott? Dak has been on fire. He set the new mark for no interceptions to start a rookie season. Threw for 3 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers. Cowboys foil the Packers 30-16 in Lambeau, no less. Marcus Mariota has another great game. His Tennessee Titans get by the Cleveland Browns 28-26. Mr. Mariota, 284 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns. Chips in trouble. The Niners are awful. Defense and offense getting shelled by the Buffalo Bills 45-16. On Saturday, the OSU Beavers went the distance, giving number 21 Utah a challenge before losing 19-14. Soccer, the Portland Timbers remain in the playoff picture as they won their 5th straight at home. And NBA preseason, the Portland Trailblazers come up short against the Denver Nuggets, 106-97. Wake Up Call Sports on KPNW, brought to you by Max Muscle, where you can always try before you buy. Max Muscle on Franklin across from Market of Choice in Eugene. News time, 8:23.
KPNW weather, brought to you by Ramjack West. Do you have foundation problems? Ramjack can fix that. Get your free quote at ramjackwest.com.
Good morning to you and yours. Today's shaping up to be more of the same as we've got another pocket of low pressure moving through the region. That means mostly cloudy skies, light haze out there. Temps right now in the upper 40s to a couple of low 50s. And it is fairly windy. Winds are out of the south at 10 to 20, and we're seeing a few gusts up to 25. I'm also tracking a few isolated showers off and on. Now, another pocket of low pressure will move through this afternoon, and that means more of the same. Mostly cloudy skies. Temps will rise into the upper 50s, a couple of low 60s, 57 here in town. Winds will switch to the southwest at 5 to 15, with a few gusts up to 20, and a 60% chance of more showers off and on over the next few hours into this afternoon. Now, there's good news, though. Most of this rain will start to wrap up as we move into Wednesday afternoon, buying us at least a few days of partly cloudy skies and fairly dry weather before another major system heads this way. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Nation, the NBC 16 Weather Center, hoping you have a fantastic day.
When you need foundation repairs, turn to the foundation experts at Ramjack West. Get your free in-home evaluation at ramjackwest.com. Serving Oregon and Washington. Choose Ramjack. CCB 146906.
You've heard me talk about glutamine and how important it is for your body. It repairs every cell in the human body, giving you overall optimal health. It's odorless, tasteless, and flavorless. Stop by, give it a try. You won't taste a thing. Max Muscle, Franklin Boulevard in Eugene.
Every election year, you hear lots of promises and few guarantees. Lars Larson here to tell you about one guarantee you have right here in Eugene and Lane County. Jeremy Parmenter will sell your home. That's right. Jeremy guarantees to sell your home at a price and a deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it. And Jeremy will sell your home fast. Darbin and Ruby wanted to sell their home and move out of the country. They didn't need the extra stress that comes with selling their home, so they called Jeremy Parmenter. He sold their home in less than 30 days, right on schedule, and got them $10,000 more than any house in that neighborhood. Why would you think of working with any other agent in Eugene or Lane County? And there's no risk. If you want out of the contract, you're out. Call the only agent I recommend in Eugene. Call Jeremy Parmenter at 541-255-5685. That's 541-255-5685. Online, OregonRealEstateAdvisors.com. That's OregonRealEstateAdvisors.com.
Thirsty Thursdays coming up again, and KPNW and myself, Bill London, would like to invite you to come down and hoist a Widmer as once again we visit the First National Tap House in downtown Eugene. It's going to be from 4 to 7 coming up on October 27th. We've got all sorts of prizes, including Rockin' Road to Dublin tickets at the Holt Center, plenty of Bud merchandise, and a lot of other goodies. So come on down and join us. It's October 27th. It's a Thirsty Thursday, 4 to 7 at the First National Tap House. Come down, say hi.
Things are brighter since the darkest days of the Great Recession. Oregon's economy is on the mend. But Arnie Roblin believes it's only a real recovery if no one is left behind. That drives Arnie forward, keeping him fighting for us. As a former high school principal, Arnie knows our state of the fight for full-day kindergarten and an increase in education funding to $7.4 billion only succeeds when we invest in our most precious resource, our children. That's why Arnie Roblin. Arnie knows we can't say we're great if every working Oregonian can't take care of their family. So he voted to raise the minimum wage and for affordable housing to stop workers getting priced out. Arnie Roblin believes older Oregonians have earned our respect. He's working to improve project independence and for tougher penalties for elder abuse. For our youngest child, for our oldest neighbor, Senator Arnie Roblin is making things better.
Paid for by Friends of Arnie Roblin.
So hopefully over the weekend you had a chance to rest and recuperate, and you just laid in bed all day and read books, napped at the siesta. If you didn't, maybe the bed wasn't like inviting. Maybe it wasn't drawing you. Didn't have a huge vacuum just sucking you back in so that you had no choice. The best rest sale is going on, but it's ending very soon. For a limited time, you can save hundreds on Beauty Rest and Posturepedic mattress sets. Just take 15 minutes out of your day. Go check out how you can get $200 in bonus cash when you elevate your comfort with the movable base, which means nothing unless you've got that remote control in your hand and you've had a little fun with it. It's good towards free delivery, pillows or sheets, even up to 4 years interest-free financing on Tempur-Pedic and Beauty Rest Black mattress sets. No money down. You can call 866-780-6220 for credit costs and terms, subject to credit approval, going on today at Sleep Train.
Head on in. You know where to find them. Corvallis, Albany, Eugene, and Springfield. And when you go through, if you're not too embarrassed, say that Bill and Rob from the Wake Up Call sent you. You can whisper it.
Mornings are a little different with the Wake Up Call.
You're an embarrassment to nature. Do you know that?
Holloway in London. On News Radio 1120 KPNW.
828. 1120 KPNW. World War II Navy vet, Mr. Jack Burris, and Korean Navy vet, Bill Hudson, able to take part in the honor flight that happened a weekend ago. Mike Pungerkar, the Public Relations Director of Honor Flight, also joining us in the Wake Up Call. Welcome one, welcome all. Thanks for coming back into this station, everybody.
Thank you. Here.
All right, so Mr. Burris, let's start with you. How was the honor flight?
The honor flight was absolutely astounding.
Astounding.
It was tremendous. The flight itself was grand. The interesting thing about it is when we stopped to get off the bus or whatever to go to pick up our flight, there were people there to greet us. It was amazing.
Didn't quite expect that, did you?
No, that was just incredible. And of course, when we got off the flight to go to our hotel, there were people there to greet us. It was astounding, just thrilling it could be. And of course, then when we got to D.C., that was another moment, believe me, when people greeted us there. And of course, then the tours we took of the monuments and the memorials, that was thrilling. That was just awesome and very emotional many times.
Did the memorial stand out, you would think, above all, or is there something else?
All depends on where you were at the time that these things took place. The one that really impressed me, there were two of them. The Korean memorial with the monument, the marble-faced, with all the pictures of individuals that were, how did they put those in there?
I think they were laser etched into that wall.
That was it, laser etched of these people that were in there, and it was just incredible. It could bring tears to your eyes, really. And then, of course, the last one, when we finished off with the raising of the flag at Iwo Jima, that was solemn. That was terrific. And another interesting thing was when we were at the changing of the guard.
At Arlington. Yeah.
That was tremendous. That was really awe-inspiring. And a real interesting item, if I may bring it up here, is that we were standing there. There were a lot of people there other than just our group. There were outsiders, people visiting. And my guardian was right next to me, Larry Schock. And I just, out of the side of my eye, saw him disappear. Just within a second, a young lady had fainted, and he was there at her side. Just incredible. He must have flown over there. He was took care of her, watched over her for a while. But all in all the veterans that I met there are tremendous people.
How much time did you have to talk with it? Were there other honor flights from other parts of the country?
Not to my knowledge, no. Was there, Mike?
Yeah, there were probably 9 to 10 other honor flights from around the country in D.C. that day.
Okay. There was just a tremendous crowd. And when we left the memorials themselves, each individual, and I think there were 9 of them that we got to see. Isn't that correct, Mike? And every one of them elicited some type of emotion. And you watched the people around you, and you could tell that they were really touched. It was a sobering effect.
What kind of connection or dialogue did you have with the young kids? It's amazing to see some of these, we're talking young kids coming out to kind of celebrate and salute and also communicate.
Yes, that was another thing that really got to me, because I love little children and elderly people. But these...
You like old dogs, too?
Oh, love them. Yeah. No, they don't bite that much. But anyway, these young people were amazing. I was able to hold hands with several of them and look at them in the eye, and they don't really understand yet. They're so young. But you know that they're going to be there in shoes such as ours at one time, perhaps. We never know. But they were just darlings. They were just love. It was just beautiful to see those young people out there. And you may comment, Mike, too, on this, but when we left D.C. and we were en masse to go to our flight area, the contingent of the police department was there in full uniform, saluting as we went by. It was just incredible. And there must have been at least 200 or 300 people or more at that place greeting us and calling out us, USA, and their love. They were just overflowing.
Mr. Hudson, your impressions?
Jack's pretty much covered it. My impressions were a lot of tears. The welcome was something that I had heard about, but it was overwhelming. They encouraged us to use wheelchairs because it's easier to get us around from one monument to another and everything. So I took a wheelchair, and my son was pushing me. He was my guardian. But I couldn't sit in a wheelchair. I had to stand up and actually walk in, because these people were just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and I was running out of things to say, And so I finally started telling the little girls, the younger little girls, that I started saying, well, thank you for being you. I just kind of reversed it to them. I think they kind of liked that. But yes, it was the welcomes. There's so many of them, hundreds of people in D.C. They were just lined up. We have a picture of them just out the bus window, and they're just lines and lines of them. And even a little old lady sitting there with her legs all bandaged up in a wheelchair, waving her flag. It was amazing.
Was there a particular monument that struck you?
Well, the World War II monument was a very peaceful monument for me. It has nothing to do with me, but it was very peaceful the way it's set up. You actually go down into it. It's almost kind of like a cathedral in there. And it's very quiet, mostly quiet when I was there anyway, I noticed, and a lot of fountains and stuff. And that really struck me because the World War II started when I was probably about 9 years old. And so, and I was really right through it all that time. I grew up in Indio and California, and Patton was training his troops down there, and quite a few, so I was pretty much into it. With the Korean monument, my son wheeled me around. I was still in the wheelchair then. I came around the corner, and I saw the monument from the back of the soldiers going across the field. And the tears started coming. I just couldn't help it. And then we went around by the ghost wall, as Jack mentioned, and that's quite impressive. We went around, and my son put me around in front there so we could look at it from the front. And I was really feeling pretty emotional, and all of a sudden this group of people really loud came through, yeah, and it kind of killed the mood, you know. It struck me that
were they protesters?
No, they were just well, they were actually, I won't list the country, but they were people from other countries that were just coming through, and they just weren't paying any attention to it. It was just a pathway through. And if I had any negative thing to say about it, is that the Vietnam Memorial and the Korean Memorial should be separated out a little more, so that they don't get the main rush of people cutting through and everything that don't really care about it. It ought to be. I think it ought to be separated a little bit so that the people that really are affected by it would
be able to have their time.
More, you know, but it is not enough to kill that whole thing for me. It was very emotional. My son challenged me to climb the steps to the Lincoln Memorial, and I did. And then we did it again at the Jefferson Memorial. By that time, I couldn't do anything, so I missed the Air Force and the Women's Memorial, but I just couldn't get a leg moving anymore. But it was a good trip.
Talk about the experience that you had being able to do all this with your son.
That was a very, very special thing, having it with my son, because we got to spend, of course, the time together in the hotels at night, and just with each other. I felt a little strange having my son packing me around, so we tried to take some of the burden as much as I could, and sometimes we'd put the stuff in the wheelchair.
I'm willing to bet if we asked your son right now, he would have said that was all worth it.
He did. He's I got a special guy here, so what can I say? I'm very prejudiced, but he is my son. It was very nice.
You get that right.
Yeah. The whole overall experience was it was first class all the way. Police escorts with the buses. I mean, we had motorcycles ahead, motorcycles behind, cars buzzing by us with lights flashing, sirens, stopping the traffic and everything. We just got the buses just got an express run all the way through the monuments and everything, everywhere we went. So that was kind of neat, an honor in itself. The people coming and going, applauding us, even after we were walking around the monument, said, walk right up to you and shake your hand and say thank you for your service or pat you on the back. All in all, I think that the people were just outstanding that we come across in there. The people that put on this mic and so forth, there's not enough words to say thank you for them. It was really specially planned. I mean, it mostly ran like clockwork.
And yet, ultimately, it's a thank you to you.
Well, yes, it is. It was something that I didn't experience when I came home. I just came home and went to work in the mill. So, it was quite an experience that I didn't expect.
You guys have maybe worked this question in tandem, but for somebody out there, a vet, a World War II vet that maybe has not gone, or a Korean vet that doesn't even really know about it yet, talk about the whole idea of, yes, you should go.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. If they get a chance, they should go and experience this. It's an experience they'll never forget. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's. I don't know how we'll contact these people to let them know, but somehow we've got to do this and let them know that they should go and see this.
Let's bring Mike in. Mike, for folks that maybe have a family member that was in Korea or, World War II, what do they need to do to try and get that person on an honor flight?
Well, the first thing I do is encourage them, based on the feedback of people like Jack and Bill here, and that this is something that they deserve. It's been a lot of years since these men and women have served. Many of them came home without any type of recognition or thank you for having served their country. And this is the opportunity for family members to see that those veterans can finally get that thank you from our nation. The information's available on our website. Got to plug that, swvhonorflight.org. I guess I want to say, just as a side note, I didn't go on this honor flight. I was traveling in a different part of the country, but I'm extremely proud of Ed Bach and the team leaders and the volunteers that went on this trip, because it ran like all the rest of them have it, just like a clockwork. And they just did a great job. The incident at Arlington that Jack was referring to about, a woman collapsed in the stands, and we had, oh Lord, probably in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 police officers, paramedics, and nurses amongst the group of team leaders and volunteers. And our people, they responded immediately to that woman's needs, and it went right there. In fact, I've been told by John and Alice Brooks that at least one of them leaped across the barriers and went across the area that's not supposed to be touched by anybody but the Army, and got yelled at too, but his focus was on that person that went down. And they did. I really don't know what the issue was, if she just passed out or what, but paramedics were called, and I understand the woman was transported. But she had a lot of help. She was right there from people in our group, and I'm very proud of that.
That's good.
If I may interject, Larry Schock, I have to admit it now, he's my son-in-law. He's also a paramedic, registered paramedic. So he kept his eye on anything and everything. It was amazing what that man was doing, and the other medics too. Yeah. They were watching these people like a hawk.
To digress for a moment, I had a chance to see the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown when I was 15. And of all the things, and I spent a week and a half back in Washington, D.C., and of all the things that I saw there, that is the most vivid memory, and that is the thing that I would most like to go back and witness again.
Can I inject something on that?
Sure.
Excuse me, I got a frog here. One thing that they did that was a little unusual is they slid their feet, shuffled their foot a little bit as they stepped in honor of us. As they step, they slide their foot just a little bit, and that was in honor of us.
The soldiers that are guarding the tomb, when they recognize veterans that are there, and particularly with the honor flight groups, on one of their passes, they will drag their heel, slide their heel, and that's a salute to the veterans.
Even when the sergeant was changing the guard, he did the same thing.
Yep, sergeant coming in to oversee the changing of the guard to do the same thing.
Another interesting thing, if I may interject on this one too, that changing the guard, everything was timed to 21 seconds. Yep. 21 steps, took 21 seconds to make the complete trip from one end to the other. And I don't know for a fact, maybe somebody can corroborate this, but I think that had to do with something with the 21-gun salute,
yes.
Didn't it?
Yeah, when they take their pause at the end of each pass, they pause for 21 seconds, and then take the 21 steps back again.
Amazing. Let's take a quick break. 8:44 more with the Honor Flight crew in with the Wake Up Call on KPNW.
The Bloomberg Market Report, sponsored by Pacific Continental Bank, serving your business and community in Eugene for over 40 years.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Bank of America said quarterly profit rose 7.3% as expenses fell. The lender has been cutting costs for years while dealing with persistently low interest rates. Trading revenue rose to the highest in 5 years. Stocks are little changed this morning. Deutsche Bank is exploring shrinking its U.S. operations as mounting legal expenses threaten to eat into the firm's capital. That's according to people familiar with the matter. SuperValu agreed to sell the Save-A-Lot grocery chain to Canada's Onyx Corporation for $1.37 billion. The deal is part of a broader shakeup in the industry, with major players consolidating. Save-A-Lot operates more than 1,300 discount grocery stores. Apple has drastically scaled back its automotive ambitions, leading to hundreds of job cuts and a new direction that for now no longer includes building its own car. That's according to people familiar with the matter. Hundreds of members of the car team, which comprises about 1,000 people, have been reassigned, let go, or have left on their own in recent months. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg.
Built for business. In business, time is money. And business money is also money. No wonder nearly 1,000 businesses choose Comcast Business Internet over DSL from the phone company every single day. Not only is it up to 5 times faster, it's actually a better value when you go with the fastest plan. So take a minute out of your busy schedule and call Comcast Business. It will be well worth your time and your money.
Switch to Comcast Business Internet. Then add voice and TV for just $34.90 a month. And ask about our 2-year price guarantee. Call 800-501-6000 or visit ComcastBusiness.com. Comcast Business. Built for business.
Offer ends 10/31/16. Restrictions apply. Limited to one voice line and private view TV for new customers. 2-year contract required. Requires Comcast Business Internet at an additional monthly charge. Equipment, taxes, and fees, including broadcast TV fee extra. Savings claim based on cost per megabits per second. Compares Comcast 100 megabits per second and 20 megabits per second DSL downloads.
Jiffy Lube on 7th in Eugene invites you to join them in celebrating new ownership. Stop by Jiffy Lube on 7th next to Champion Car Wash and receive $5 off a signature service oil change. And get a free deluxe car wash. It's only $29.95 at Jiffy Lube on 7th in Eugene.
Lane County's premier women's event, attracting thousands of women, the Affair of the Heart is now accepting vendor applications for 2017. Now is the time to reserve your booth. Log on to theaffairoftheheart.com to secure your spot. Sponsored by Shelton Turnbull, Green Solutions Printing.
Bicoastal Media is looking for a human resources manager to join our corporate team working 30 to 32 hours per week. Requirements for this position include 5 or more years of comprehensive HR experience, along with some accounting experience. A background with employment law in multiple states, including Washington, California, and Oregon, is preferred. You also must be able to multitask, have excellent communication skills, be detail-oriented, and proficient in Excel. Pay is commensurate with experience. Email your resume and cover letter to corphr@bicoastalmedia.com. Bicoastal Media is an equal opportunity employer.
Each franchise independently owned and operated. Offer good on selected product at participating franchises only. Some restrictions may apply. Ask for details.
Stay tuned for a special offer from Budget Blinds.
Honey, I just tried to turn on the TV with the remote and our new shades went up. What's going on?
Oh, I got the new shades from Budget Blinds. They're motorized. Now I don't have to keep getting up and down to adjust them. We can do it with the push of a button. Pretty convenient, huh?
Wow, you're a genius.
The Budget Blinds motorization event is here with huge savings on the most stylish, kid-friendly motorized window coverings available anywhere. And right now, you can get a rebate up to $500 when you purchase motorized Signature Series window coverings powered by Somfy. Plus, Budget Blinds does all the measuring and installation and gives you a free in-home design consultation. Call now to get an up to $500 rebate on motorized window coverings from Budget Blinds. This event ends soon. Call your locally owned Budget Blinds at 1-800-611-9262. That's 1-800-611-9262. 1-800-611-9262.
An important message from Medicare.
I found a better deal on prescriptions.
I found a new plan with lower costs. It's Medicare Open Enrollment. Have you compared plans yet? Who knows what you might find? Check out your options at Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
You never know unless you go.
Medicare Open Enrollment, October 15th through December 7th. Brought to you by the Department of Health and Human Services.
In my line of work, I'm trying to make a difference. Not $1 billion, but I want to save for the future, too. So this year, I partnered with TIAA to help me map out a plan. If I stick to it, I could have an income stream for life and maintain my lifestyle in retirement. Looks like a life of rewarding work could pay off for a lifetime.
Your personal success takes a financial partner who values it as much as you do. Learn more at TIAA.org.
What do I got to do?
Entertain your brain this morning.
Got to broaden your mind a little bit.
With the Wake Up Call on News Radio 1120 KPNW.
Remaining moments of an honor flight. A wake-up call with the honor flight crew in studio. We have Mr. Jack Burris, World War II vet, Bill Hudson from the Korean War, and Mike Pungerkar, who is the founder and public relations director with the honor flight. Mr. Pungerkar, kind of a unique setting about this last flight.
Yes, this was our first opportunity to transport Vietnam veterans on their honor flights. And, you know, we still continue to give priority by age, seniority, if you will, to the World War II veterans. And we did have 12 World War II veterans on this honor flight. Then next is the Korean War veterans. We had 26 Korean War veterans, like Bill. And then for the first time, we took 9 Vietnam veterans on this flight. And I'm sure that by the May honor flight of next year, which just happens to be May 11th to the 14th, we've already got the dates picked, and Ed Bach is working on getting that one set up. I'm sure that the majority of the group will be Korean and Vietnam War veterans. Hopefully we'll still find some World War II veterans out there that want to go.
How full are we?
I talked to Alice Brooks last week, and I believe I think we've got enough applications on file right now to fill the May honor flight. I think Ed Bach referred to that as well. But we always get cancellations, people's health changes, life changes. So I still encourage people, fill out your application and get it in. If you're a World War II veteran, you will be given priority, and you will go on the May 2017 honor flight. Again, then by seniority, we would take Korean War veterans, and then, like we did this time, fill the balance of the openings with Vietnam veterans. Our objective is to have honor flights in May and October of 2017, and when we get to the end of 2017, we'll see how things look for 2018.
Always an issue and something that we should talk about as far as funding the flights. Any fundraisers coming up?
Crescent Park Senior Living is going to have their fourth spaghetti fundraiser dinner for us on Thursday night, November 10th, so the day before Veterans Day. That's the only formal fundraiser that I'm aware of right now on the schedule. We're always looking for more opportunities. Oh, the Elks Club in Springfield is going to have a showing of the Honor Flight movie Forgotten Heroes on November 15th, Tuesday night, November 15th. And we'll get you more information about the times and stuff for those. I have a formal fundraising committee we organized several months ago, and the members of that committee are going to be focusing on contacting businesses and companies in Lane, Lynn, Lincoln, and Benton counties. We've had a few companies that have stepped forward and graciously made donations to help us with these honor flights, but there's a lot of other ones out there that we're really hoping will get on board, join us in sponsoring these honor flights or funding at least parts of the honor flights so that we can keep these things going. You know, World War II got a lot of publicity at the end of last year, being the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. Last year also marked the 60th anniversary since the start of the Korean War, which in some minds, particularly with the leader of North Korea, still goes on today. Because in 1953, there wasn't an end to the war per se, there was an armistice, a ceasefire. The Vietnam War, likewise, was never declared an official war. I've mentioned this on the air before when I was doing research on my book, The Promise Kept, about World War II and the 8th Air Force and its role in the air war over Europe in World War II. World War II was the last formal war that this country fought to win, and that the citizens of this country were truly united behind. But just because there hasn't been that unity, if you will, in some of the other wars, we can't forget about the other veterans that served. You know, we hear this over and over through the last, particularly since the Vietnam War. You don't have to like the war, but please support our veterans. You know, they're there, they're following orders, they're doing their job, and they're helping preserve the freedoms and the things that we enjoy and take for granted so often in this day and age. The Korean War is so often called the Forgotten War. You know, the formal hostilities, if you will, with U.S. troops involved took place between 1950 and 1953. We still have troops serving in South Korea and on the demilitarized zone on the 38th parallel and stuff. The Vietnam War was a war that divided this country like no war prior to it had ever divided this country. And unfortunately, not only didn't the veterans, a lot of the veterans that came back from the Vietnam War, not receive any thanks, they were really treated badly. Yeah. And this is an opportunity to make up for some of that stuff. Well, the honor flight honors all veterans. And again, we are taking the Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. As long as we've got them, we'll keep taking them.
When's the deadline to get your application in?
For the next May honor flight?
Yeah.
I guess it'll be probably somewhere in early part of April of next year. I'll let Ed Bach and Alice Brooks set the deadline on that one. I have not talked to them about that yet, but I think they took applications pretty much up till the end of September, at least from World War II veterans, before they had to lock in with the airlines on names on all the tickets.
Mr. Burris, Mr. Hudson, thank you both for your service, and thanks for coming back in and talking about it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Jack Burris, Bill Hudson, and Mike Punjakar.
Thanks for having us back on the air.
Absolutely. And don't forget, swvhonorflight.org. And that's going to do it for us. Standing water out there, a little bit of minor flooding. Just be careful out there, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6:05 right here on KPNW.
Bill and Tim's is barbecue and a whole lot more.
Bill, barbecue is the very air we breathe.
I know, Tim, but it isn't for everyone all the time. That's why Bill and Tim's expanded menu is a big hit.
True, we don't look like a men's club in here anymore.
Golden mac and cheese balls, Mexican specialty dishes, gourmet salads. What new dish will you be trying today, Tim?
I'm ready to branch out.
Great.
Give me the barbecue bacon cheeseburger.
Tim. Bill and Tim's Barbecue.
Open at 11 daily.
13th and Pearl in Eugene.
KPNW invites you to join us October 21st and 22nd for the Bigfoot Beverages first annual Little Woody Barrel-Aged Brews and Whiskey Festival.
A celebration of barrel-aged beers from the Northwest. Tickets are on sale now at littlewoodyeugene.com.
Hosted at Venue 252 on Lawrence Street in Eugene, the Little Woody will feature over 20 local and regional craft breweries sampling beers, ciders, and the Bend Distillery whiskey area.
And catch live music on the Seven Feathers Music Stage. littlewoodyeugene.com.
I won't mention any names, but their initials are
Holloway in London. The Wake Up Call. News Radio 1120 KPNW.
Quarterback pumps. Now throws complete. Receivers inside the 20. Headed for the end zone. That's a touchdown, Oregon.
Precision counts, whether it's a big game on the line or, more importantly, your quality of life.
I used to refer to the excruciating pain in my cheek and jaw as crunch time. Turns out it's called trigeminal neuralgia, a condition caused by a nerve in my brain. I lived in fear of the next episode until my doctor recommended Sacred Heart Gamma Knife Center.
With the precision of a Heisman quarterback, the center's specialized physicians targeted the nerve with highly focused radiation beams. No knives or incisions were needed, which preserved healthy tissue. Mary returned home the same day, and it was game over for her pain in just a few weeks.
It's a whole new ballgame for me, with cheers instead of fears.
If you have a brain tumor or episodes of severe facial pain, ask your primary doctor or specialist if the Gamma Knife could be right for you. Visit our website at peacehealth.org/Gamma Knife to learn more.
Every election year, you hear lots of promises and few guarantees. Lars Larson here to tell you about one guarantee you have right here in Eugene and Lane County. Jeremy Parmenter will sell your home. That's right, Jeremy guarantees to sell your home at a price and a deadline you agree to, or he'll buy it. And Jeremy will sell your home fast. Darbin and Ruby wanted to sell their home and move out of the country. They didn't need the extra stress that comes with selling their home, so they called Jeremy Parmenter. He sold their home in less than 30 days, right on schedule, and got them $10,000 more than any house in that neighborhood. Why would you think of working with any other agent in Eugene or Lane County? And there's no risk. If you want out of the contract, you're out. Call the only agent I recommend in Eugene. Call Jeremy Parmenter at 541-255-5685. That's 541-255-5685. Online, OregonRealEstateAdvisors.com. That's OregonRealEstateAdvisors.com.
Depend on us for breaking news from the local neighborhood to the global one. We are News Radio 1120 KPNW, Eugene, Springfield.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lisa Brady. The FBI releasing more documents from the Hillary Clinton email probe, and Republicans are pouncing on some of what's in there. Fox Radio's Jared Halpern live in Washington.
An Undersecretary of State pressured the FBI to unclassify emails on Hillary Clinton's private server. The exchange between Undersecretary Patrick Kennedy and an unnamed FBI employee is described in this latest release of files.